motion, and you get the second, but then you get, in other words, it's
Whatever.
to reverse the order, it's, okay.
Good evening. My name is Nina Recio-Cuddy. I am the co-president of the League of Women Voters for Larchmont Mamaroneck, and I want to welcome you all to the 2009 candidates debate. I first want to start by just thanking some people. First of all, the Village of Mamaroneck for extending us the use of the courtroom as our venue. I want to thank the candidates for their participation. I want to thank our moderator for her willingness to serve, our timekeeper for her willingness to serve, and all of the audience who come and participate in this. It's an important part of the election process. I also want to thank LMC-TV for broadcasting. We're going to have debates for 3 contested elections tonight for 2 different terms on the Village of Mamaroneck trustees and for the mayor. And then following that, we will have more of a question and answer period for the uncontested elections, the uncontested races in the town of Mamaroneck. That would be for the 2 open positions on the town council and the open position of town supervisor. It's not open, it's occupied by Valerie O'Keefe, but they're all incumbents and they're running unopposed. And we thought it would be responsible for us to give the audience and the community members an opportunity to ask questions of people who are running in an uncontested forum as well as in a contested one. On the table, we have voters' guides, and we have membership envelopes, and we do want to just invite you to a couple of things that are coming up. There is an issues breakfast being sponsored by the League on November 6th, Friday morning at Hector's Cafe on Mamaroneck Avenue, and the topic is going to be healthcare reform. And we have with us, who will be with us is the regional president, I believe, of the National Physicians for a Healthcare Program, or National Healthcare Program. And then on November 17th at the high school, in conjunction with the summit, we're sponsoring a program on revaluation and reassessment of property. And I think both of these are things that are very important to the public, and we'd like to help spread the information and bring forth debate and conversation on the topics. Thank you all for being here, and with that I will turn it over to our moderator, Noreen Fisher, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. You're welcome. Good evening. I'd like to start this forum by reminding everyone that we are here tonight to hear the candidates' views on issues which concern your village. And it's important that we maximize the amount of time that we have for that effort. Because, as you are well aware, our time this evening is extremely limited and our agenda very full, I must ask that you refrain from applause for the candidates until the end of their closing statements for each segment of this program. At that time, we'll take a short break while we switch over from one race to the other, and you'll have plenty of time to show your support if you wish to do so. The order of tonight's forum is first we will hear from the candidates for the Mamaroneck Village Mayor. After that, we will hear from the candidates who are running for a full 2-year term on the Mamaroneck Village Board of Trustees. The third contested race are those candidates who are running to fill a 1-year, unexpired term on the Village of Mamaroneck's Board of Trustees. Following those contested races, we will hear from the candidates who are running unopposed for the District 7 County Legislator position, for the Town of Mamaroneck Supervisor, and for the Town Council. Each candidate in a contested election will have the opportunity to make a 1.5-minute opening statement. Those candidates who are running in uncontested elections later on this evening will not be making an opening statement. A question and answer period will follow in all of the races, with the candidates having a 1.5-minute time limit to respond to any questions. We are asking you to submit your questions in writing. The questions for the mayoral portion of tonight's meeting have already been submitted. There are forms up here on the table in front for any questions that you might have for the succeeding races. If anyone wants to take a form, I'm sure the league usher will be happy to pass them out to you if you have any questions you wish to ask for any of the persons running in the trustee races. We are not having a formal rebuttal period. If any of the candidates wish to rebut anything that they hear the other candidates saying, they're to include that in subsequent remarks. And each segment is going to begin with a few lead questions, and then we're going to follow with those questions that you have come up with. For your questions, we ask you, as I've said, to submit them in writing, and they must be concerning issues, not personal, and that we will not accept any personal attacks or anything that is not issue related. If there are multiple questions on the same topic, we may choose only one question to begin, and if there is time remaining at the end of the period, we will try and ask all of the questions that we receive. Questions may be directed to a specific candidate, although all of the candidates may choose to answer. They will be given that opportunity. And no person who asks more than one question, no second question is going to be taken until everyone who wants to ask a first question has that opportunity to have that question read. You must be present, and when I do read your question, I'm going to ask for read your name and address and ask you to please indicate that you are in the room. You can raise your hand or nod your head. I'll look for you. Closing statements will follow the question and answer period and will be limited up to 1.5 minutes in the contested races and 1 minute in the uncontested races. The candidates have already drawn lots for the order of speaking, and I would like to introduce your two candidates for the position of Mayor of the Village of Mamaroneck. To my right is Kathleen Savolt, who is the current incumbent and can be found on the Democratic and Working Families line. And to my left is Mr. Norman Rosenblum, who is the challenger, and he will be listed on the Republican, the Conservative, and also a local party, the Taxpayers Relief line, on the ballot come November. They have drawn lots for speaking, and Mr. Rosenblum, you are first, and you have up to 1.5 minutes.
Thank you very much. As most of you have seen our brochures and appearances on television, 1.5 minutes is very short. I'm not going to talk about myself. I'm going to answer the questions that most of you have asked us. What do we stand for? If you believe in open meetings by the Board of Trustees and you believe to have public input, then you'll vote for the unification slate, Rosenblum, Santoro, and Ybarra. If you believe in true inflationary budget control without hidden agendas, you will vote for Rosenblum, Santoro, and Ybarra. If you believe in active interaction between the mayor and Board of Trustees and its own boards and commissions, as well as community organizations such as the Chamber of Commerce or the Habitat for Humanity or the Mamaroneck Avenue Task Force, you will vote for Rosenblum, Santoro, and Ybarra, which doesn't exist now. If you believe in investing in the Village of Mamaroneck, and when you hire a local policeman, you will call for the local hiring list, then you will vote for Rosenblum, Santoro, and Ybarra. If you believe in addressing an age-old question, as far as I've been around for 50 years, what do you do with the youth? You implement a skateboard park and other youth programs in the Village of Mamaroneck. You establish shovel-ready programs for flood mitigation. If you want to put Mamaroneck first and invest and support your local efforts, then you will vote for Santoro, Rosenblum, and Ybarra. And, can't forget myself, you'll do what the Chamber of Commerce espouses. Keep it local. Shop, dine, and hire locally. Invest in the Village of Mamaroneck. Put Mamaroneck first.
Thank you very much. Ms. Savolt?
Thank you, Noreen. Hi, I'm Kathy Savolt, and for the past 2 years, I have been proud to serve as your mayor. I would like to serve another term to continue the work we have started together. This journey together began about 2 years ago while I was campaigning. Like now, I walk throughout the village to meet you and hear what was on your mind. The number one complaint back then was how our village board meetings were conducted. The previous administration had changed the long-standing rules and allowed people to speak out whenever they wanted. Board meetings became chaotic and reflected the conduct of the government: out of control, no structure, and little getting done. Upon getting elected, I wanted to address your complaints and did my homework. I asked many of my colleagues what they did at their meetings. No one ran meetings like they had been run in Mamaroneck. I also researched the New York Conference of Mayors and found model meeting procedures. 2 years ago, we adopted new procedures that expanded public access and comment and allowed us to accomplish the business of the village. We no longer get complaints about the meetings. In fact, the number one compliment I receive is about how professional the meetings are. The meeting procedures were widely distributed and comments were solicited. But here we are, almost 2 years later, and this is all my opponent has to say by way of a plan for the future. He would return us to the chaos. Tonight, I hope we can have a meaningful discussion on the real issues: taxes, flooding, the environment, and our goals to make Mamaroneck the best-run village ever.
Thank you. The first question is coming from the League, has been prepared by your local league, and the question has to do with shared services. Over many years, there have been various studies that cite as wasteful the multiplicity of government entities and overlap of municipal services. What specific services, if any, would you consolidate, and with whom, and how would you consolidate? And Ms. Savold, you're first.
Thank you, Noreen. The village of Mamaroneck has a long history of consolidating and sharing services with our neighbors. It goes all the way back to the 1920s when we created the Westchester Joint Waterworks to provide municipal water service along with the town of Harrison and the town of Mamaroneck. Our EMS, our ambulance services are also consolidated. Our local access cable TV is consolidated. And just last year in my administration, we consolidated the Mamaroneck Village Senior Center with that of the town and the village of Larchmont for a savings to the village taxpayers of almost $300,000. We are very interested in looking at whatever we can do to save money and share service, but it has to make sense for us. Right now, we're participating in a tri-municipal, that's the town of Mamaroneck, the village of Larchmont, and the village of Mamaroneck committee to look at possible ways to reduce taxpayer burden in the municipal portion of the budget. And I'm happy to say that I convened the first ever meeting of all elected officials from the town of Rye and the town of Mamaroneck to look to see how all of us can work together, and those discussions continue.
Thank you. Mr. Rosenblum.
Well, the fact of the matter is there are programs in place already that the village can buy through buying consortiums, whether it be through New York State, the county. The police department buys through, not on its own, going out and buying vehicles. There are certain programs that you certainly look to combine with the other municipalities so you don't have duplication of services. However, there's also the fact of the matter that the hardest thing to do is give up people's desire to maintain their own power. What you really do is go out and attack the problems that are facing the village the most, such as flooding. What this village needs is to coordinate its efforts with Larchmont, the town of Mamaroneck, including the village of Mamaroneck, Harrison, Rye, Portchester, and Rye Brook. Then you get together and become a very strong political pack, and then you go after Up County, because that's where all the flooding is coming from. And that's how you do it. You can serve and coordinate with other municipalities for a political force. That, in turn, can turn around and lead to other things such as purchasing and so on. But you must create a political entity. Thank you.
Thank you. The next two questions have to do with flood mitigation. The first one is from Ms. Hopman. Are you present? Thank you. After 2.5 years, we still do not have a start date from the Army Corps of Engineers. For 2 years, we have been told that projects cannot take place until the Army Corps study is complete, which is not true. Projects can be approved by the Army Corps. And this is proving to be a very long-term process. The question has to do is, what are your plans for flood mitigation, and when do you plan on getting started with them? Mr. Rosenblum.
Well, the shame of it is that the village of Mamaroneck for the last 30 months has done nothing ever since the flood. They've had the opportunity to do it. In the village of Mamaroneck has had $400,000 for use in the past 2 years. There are projects that are readily available, and as a matter of fact, whether my opponent would like to admit it or not, all you have to do is go to the village website, and on the village website it says the Army Corps of Engineers allows you to go do these projects. You can take away the road to nowhere, and you can do it in conjunction, like I said before, working with another town, in this case Harrison. You should be applying for grants. I myself called up and spoke to the state DEC and the Army Corps of Engineers. They have no problem whatsoever with the Village of Mamaroneck going into the rivers and doing projects that don't affect it. And there are 3 levels that you're looking at when you're considering flooding. One's the federal, which is the Army Corps of Engineers study. It's going to take another 30 months, and then you're going to go for funding. It's going to take 5, 10, 15 years before you do anything. What you have to do is do what is available to the Village of Mamaroneck, and that is use the $400,000, write application after application, which is available, and use the local people. Habitat for Humanity, the Boy Scouts, the volunteers, they will go into the rivers. The Village of Mamaroneck for many years, continuously and annually, has always cleaned up the river. Do it again. If you save 1 inch, you may save someone's home.
Thank you. Ms. Sebold?
Like everyone knows, any kind of flood mitigation construction would cost a lot of money. And after the 2007 devastating floods, the Village of Mamaroneck requested help from the federal government, and the federal government agreed to help. What's happening between the lawyers for the Army Corps of Engineers and the lawyers for the state of New York and their contract negotiations is totally out of our control. But let me clear up some misstatements and some misperceptions. Yes, we can do some things in the river, and we started doing them. We can maintain the rivers. We had a village cleanup in April. We removed 9 tons of debris from the river. We can, of course, keep the storm drains clear and the grates in the dam clear, which started under my watch and a regular maintenance. What we keep hearing about is this $400,000, but unfortunately, Mr. Rosenblum hasn't gotten his facts straight. Assemblyman Latimer got us a $400,000 grant for construction, and construction only. And we cannot use it for some of the maintenance issues that Mr. Rosenblum is talking about. And the road to nowhere, I think everyone knows by now, we don't own it. It's owned by the Village of Harrison. They don't have the funds to remove it. We've talked to them. We're talking about applying for grants. But this isn't a simple issue. We have to get an all-hazard plan written and approved by the state before we qualify for the DEC grants, and that's underway, and we're working on it. We've done a lot of work on flooding, including looking at our land use codes.
Thank you. I'm going to violate what I said earlier because I noticed that Ms. Hopman has asked a second question related to flooding, but I know we're going to get through all the questions here that you've submitted. So for your second question, which you touched upon, has to do with the Mr. Latimer's $400,000 grant. Approximately 2 years ago, Assemblyman Latimer secured a $400,000 grant for the Village of Mamaroneck to be used for flood mitigation projects. And this is directed to you, Mayor Savolt. Have you applied for this grant? If so, for what projects? If not, why not?
We're working with the funding agency, as I stated. Many times when grants are given, they're earmarked for specific things, and we cannot deviate from that earmark. This one was earmarked for construction, and construction only, and construction related to something that would mitigate flooding and have the greatest possible relief for the residents of the Village of Mamaroneck. So we are working with the agency that's holding the grant for what would be an acceptable project for them that would meet their criteria and our needs. But I also want to talk about, when I ran for office, I promised a multifaceted approach to flooding. And not only are we looking at our land use codes, but I personally have testified in upriver communities, including the village of Scarsdale, Noreen used to be the mayor, about development upstream from us and how it's going to impact us. And we had some changes made to a project in Harrison because of our testimony. And there's also a lot of work being done on the new project that's being proposed in Scarsdale because of the testimony that I personally gave requesting a wetlands expert because the project includes wetlands. So we have applied for permits for the Mudcat to go in and help clean out the river and do some dredging. We are working on flooding every single day of the week, and every single board meeting we keep this community updated on the progress.
Thank you. Mr. Rosenblum.
Yeah, let's be a little transparent. The fact of the matter is, the project in Harrison, when I went there, and so did other residents of the Village of Mamaroneck, there is a retention basin included in that project, not because of our testimony, but because it's required by law. And the Harrison Planning Board put it in, and they were not going to let that project go forward without it. And the one question, which is most interesting, was the member of the planning board asked the mayor, "What have you done in the village of Mamaroneck?" And it was dead silence, because nothing has been done about the flooding. As far as the $400,000, I personally met with George Latimer, and it is for flood mitigation. And when you're talking about removing the road to nowhere, you can negotiate and include the money. It's not even a $400,000. The mayor wants to take the $400,000 and use it for a $2 or $3 million project on the Jefferson Avenue Bridge. That's not going to stop flooding. What's going to stop flooding is taking out the obstructions in the river. And again, you do it working with the other municipalities, you do with the money you have, and if you don't use that money soon, you may lose it. New York State is facing over a $3 billion deficit, and believe me, they're going to go after any money at any place, and if you don't use it soon, you've wasted 2 years, you're going to lose it all together.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. D. Crescenzo. Thank you, sir. And it is directed to Mr. Rosenblum. What would you do to improve transparency in our village government?
Well, the first thing you do is when you have, and I 180 degrees disagree with the village of Mamaroneck mayor. When you have a public hearing, whether it be for a law or you have just a regular Board of Trustees agenda meeting, you seek the input of the people from the village of Mamaroneck. You are a representative of the people of Village of Mamaroneck. You don't own the government. You represent the people that own the government. And if there's a question, I want to know what the input is from the other people. I may change my mind or amend my position to make it even stronger. But the greatest asset this village has is the people and the residents and the volunteers in this village. The volunteer boards and commissions have been ignored over and over again, no matter what the subject is, whether it be the budget committee, which hasn't met in 8 months, whether it be for traffic, and you ignore the traffic commission, and people just get up and walk out of boards and commissions. They're resigning because on my own tree committee, people are ready to quit and they walk out because of the attitude of the mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Savold?
This has been one of the most open governments in the village of Mamaroneck. I think unfortunately, my opponent doesn't understand what a public hearing is and what a Board of Trustees meeting is.
I understand.
But one thing I want to say is we have a new village website. We post the agenda for the board meeting the week before the board meeting. The Friday before the board meeting, we post the backup material, so anyone who wants to see what we see has an opportunity to see it. We have our emails posted, our phone numbers are readily available. We are the most accessible board in the history of the village of Mamaroneck. As far as committees goes, one of the things that has been the hallmark of this administration is our progress and how much we have gotten done. And we've been able to make such progress because we know how to set priorities and focus our attention. You can't do everything at once. We've asked some of our committees to be patient with us. We worked with our budget committee on the budget, but then we had a new village manager come after the budget cycle, and we're getting ready to start a new budget cycle for next year, and we'll be meeting with the budget committee again. We've made great progress with regards to many of our committees that needed to have some work. We had to prioritize. We had to work with the ones that needed the most work in the beginning. And as far as people leaving in droves the committees, I think that's somewhat of an exaggeration, and my opponent tends to shoot from the hip.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. Wood. Thank you, sir. And it is directed to Mr. Rosenblum. What is your position on the environment, and what will you do to go green?
My position on the environment is actually to resurrect what has been done before, and ironically, the mayor, who claims to be an environmentalist, ignores one of the local community groups that invest in the village of Mamaroneck, which is the Harbor Island Task Force, and they believe maybe eight years ago they purchased a boom that was on the Ward Avenue Bridge. It was washed away, directly affecting the quality of water in the village of Mamaroneck. The village of Mamaroneck received $25,000. They took it and they put it in the general budget. Why wasn't it replaced? They're talking about the great quality, water quality in the village of Mamaroneck with the Gunda boom, and now you can swim inside the Gunda boom. Several years ago, you can not only swim inside the Gundam Boom, you can swim outside the Gundam Boom. And the quality of water was tested by people from Pace University and New York State. You can't do it now. So obviously, you're ignoring the quality of water.
Thank you. Ms. Sevolt?
The village of Mamaroneck is going green under my administration. When I became mayor, we weren't even recycling paper in village offices. We had to start at the very beginning. And now we're a member of ICLES. We're looking at our carbon footprint. We've converted one of our garbage trucks to run on used vegetable oil. I mean, the list is so long. We've cut down on paper use. The board gets most of their materials electronically. We even had to direct the staff to make double-sided copies to cut down on paper. We've recruited a new village manager, and one of the requirements for that manager was that he had an environmental awareness and a willingness to work with the board to make Mamaroneck a model environmental community. We have stated that as a vision, and now I'm happy to say that there are members of the village staff who are taking up that, championing that vision and doing things in their own department to be more green. We're switching our traffic lights to LED to use less electricity. There's so much more that we can do, and the emphasis on the water quality in the harbor just shows how little my opponent knows about non-point source pollution and environmental issues. And I won't even talk about my own property and how I manage stormwater to keep it. I live I have a storm drain right in front of my house. We don't use pesticides. We don't use any kind of fertilizer anymore. We ripped up the lawn. I mean, we talked about this 2 years ago here. There's just so much that we've done with regards to, and I'm happy to say we have the first environmental awards, and the recipients of our first environmental awards are in the room with us tonight.
Thank you. The next question is for both candidates, and it has to do with the debt level on the Village of Mamaroneck's books. And it is from Ms. Hopman. The village has between $40 and $60 million of debt, which is a huge amount of debt for a village this size and shows lack of fiscal responsibility. What portion of the annual budget is for interest payments, and what are your plans for debt retirement? Ms. Sevolt?
We have actually, let me get this fact straight here. Right now, and this includes the library project, which was not voted on by the Board of Trustees, but by the separately voted, the separately elected library board, we have $46 million in debt. And it is a lot more than we've ever had in the village of Mamaroneck before, because for years our infrastructure has been ignored. And we were in danger of the floor collapsing in the old hook and ladder firehouse. And a previous board had voted to replace with a new modern firehouse that combined two of our fire companies. We are actively refinancing. We just did a big refinancing. I can't remember exactly how much it saved. It was about $80,000 a year in debt service. And just last night, we're going to have on the board agenda for next week. Just last night, we discussed another refinancing of another $3 million in debt. Right now, the last time we went out to the market, we got 0.9% interest. So we are refinancing to save you money. But one thing we have to recognize is the fact that there are many capital projects that need to be addressed and need to be prioritized, including the building that we're sitting in right now. We have some awful working conditions for some of our employees, and we can't ignore it. So we have to make sure that we look for savings elsewhere in the budget. Like I said, we found $300,000 in savings from consolidation of the senior center, and we will continue to look for savings to be able to afford some of the things we need now.
Thank you. Mr. Rosenblum?
Yeah, first, I want to go back to another subject, transparency. Let's talk about transparency, which also touches on the environment. You may be having potential of sitting on garbage at your house for 2 weeks. There is a study in the Village of Mamaroneck through Malcolm Perney right now to go from 2 garbage pickups a week to 1. And whether the mayor wants to admit it or not, as recently as today, there's been communication put throughout the village that the village manager is continuing to investigate this with Malcolm Perney, and his goal is to reduce the leaks. They don't care about the Village of Mamaroneck or the people that have the input. The mayor is lying to the people of the Village of Mamaroneck. I want her to tell me, is there not an active study to go from garbage from 2 days to 1 day? And as far as budgets are concerned, let's talk about budgets. The last budget meeting I was at was the budget committee said and recommended to the Village of Mamaroneck, you do not need an assistant village manager. The village manager and the mayor also agreed to it. But now they're going out to hire an assistant village manager for $80,000. They want to hire an assistant recreation person for $30,000. They talk about we have $1 million extra that we have. Well, then what you're telling the people and the taxpayer is if you paid $10,000, you paid an extra $1,000 you could have used for your own budget. But they don't care about that because they don't care about the Village of Mamaroneck.
Thank you. This is the last question again from Ms. Hopman, and it has to do with the planning board and lawsuits. Multiple questions. It's the only question.
4 questions from the same person? Okay.
It has to do with the planning board and lawsuits.
Planning board?
Yes. Many of the lawsuits the village has lost, adding to our debt level and causing the village to incur huge legal bills, is a result of decisions made by the planning board. What are your plans to correct the situation and ensure that the planning board does not continue to enter into legal battles costing taxpayers a great deal of money? Mr. Rosenblum.
Actually, it's an excellent point to bring up because it's one of my programs that I want to institute in the Village of Mamaroneck. It's going back to the value and the assets that this village has, and that's its volunteers and residents in the Village of Mamaroneck. I believe that this village needs a litigation commission, and that would be made up of attorneys that have already mentioned, and this goes across the board. It's not Republican, it's not Democrat. The same way there's no party way to pick up garbage, there's no party way to defend yourself in a lawsuit. What you have to do, first you have to realize that these land use committees, there are restrictions with the mayor and board of trustees interfering with their process. However, you do have the authority whether you're going to go ahead and defend a lawsuit or not. And what you need, as the mayor and board of trustees who are not lawyers and not litigators, you need input from professionals who you will then take their advice and decide which way to go.
Thank you. Ms. Sebold?
One of the things that you learn when you sit up here for a little while is anybody can sue you. Our planning board gets advice from our new village attorney who understands land use and the environmental laws inside, outwards, backwards. She's given classes on it. I think that we're referring to a case where the planning board followed the law and the developer didn't like it, and so the developer sued. What we can do to prevent lawsuits is to make sure that our volunteers get the best legal advice possible, and we do that. And we've done that by reducing your legal expenses. From 2006 to 2008, your total legal expenses have gone down by 75%. So I want to just say fiscal conservancy and good judgment with regards to budgets is something that's the hallmark of this administration. And I also want to assure you that many of the things that my opponent said this evening are just simply not true. There's never been a recommendation by the Budget Committee with regards to any single personnel. One member of the committee mentioned it, and there was no agreement by the current village manager or the current mayor. I think that you have to understand we are running a $30 million operation here. The future of Mamaroneck is very bright. We can't go back to running it the way it was run 30 years ago, when the budget was really small and the consequences were very low. We have very complicated issues with regards to litigation, as just pointed out, union contract, legal issues. And you need experienced people on your board to tackle those issues.
Thank you. Mr. Rosenblum.
Yes, if you want to address potential liability, what you're going to do, all you had to do is go back to the last meeting. A gentleman stands up here and says, well, the Village of Mamaroneck owes me $250,000, and I also plan on suing for $20 or $30 million. You don't just take it sitting down. You sit there, you defend yourself, but you also negotiate. You try to mitigate your responsibilities and your liabilities. You have open lawsuits with Mamaroneck Beach and Yacht Club. You have 2 lawsuits that were just filed by 2 police officers against the police department. You have multiple lawsuits that are...
Go ahead.
You have multiple
I'll let it go
lawsuits
back.
that are going on, and it goes back to the committee I'm talking about. You get input, you get professional advice, and you continue to negotiate till the day that there's a decision. You don't give up.
That's the closing statement, correct? This was our closing statement, correct?
Oh, I know
Okay.
it's closing.
Well,
That's okay.
do you want to,
No, this is our
Okay,
closing statement.
close.
This is it. You said that was it. You asked
Right.
him for his closing statement. Okay. Thank you. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. Thank you to our moderator, Noreen Fisher, and our timekeeper, Lori Braun. And thank you, LMC-TV, for broadcasting this important forum to the voters. This election, you have a clear choice. It is very apparent that my opponent has no plans for the future other than a return to the past. On the other hand, I have a record of accomplishment and a clear vision for the future. I think Mamaroneck's past is to be celebrated, but we have our best days ahead of us. My vision is to make Mamaroneck the best it can be. We have accomplished a great deal in the past 2 years, and we need more time to continue what we have started. We have reduced legal expenses by 75%, and we are looking for innovative ways to reduce expenses and keep your taxes low. We are providing tools and technology to help our employees do their job better. We are focusing on the environment and striving to make Mamaroneck a model environmental community. This will also help with our flooding. But we need to continue working with all the different levels of government who are assisting us with flood mitigation solutions. We have only just begun revising the village code, and we haven't even made our way through the land use section yet. Our downtown is vibrant and alive and representative of what we can all do together. There's so much more we need to work on with you. Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Please make sure you vote, and please vote for me and my running mates, Randy Rabinowitz and Nick Allison, and thank you for the opportunity to serve this wonderful community.
thank you. We're going to take a short break. I would ask you, please, if you have any questions for any of the trustee candidates, to please get a form from the Frontier or hang it and write it down and pass it in.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Great.
Are we all set up back there? Yes. Okay, we're now going to move forward to the first debate for the two candidates who are running for a full two-year term on the Village of Mamaroneck Board of Trustees. To my left is Ms. Randy Rabinowitz, who is a current incumbent, and she is running on the Democratic and Working Families line. And to my right is Mr. Louis Santoro, who will be found on the Republican, the Conservative, and the Taxpayers Relief line, which is a local party. Both candidates have drawn lots for speaking, and the opening statement will begin with Mr. Santoro. You have up to a minute and a half.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for this opportunity to speak tonight and to bring some issues to this election. As Norman previously stated, there are many policies that we will institute once this slate is elected on November 3rd. We're looking to bring back open government. We're looking to increase resident participation in flooding issues, which is the main issue in the village. Bring back the village to the friendly village as it once was, and reaching out to residents who have the expertise and experience to work on committees to help make this village a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rabinowitz.
Thank you, Noreen. I'm Randy Rabinowitz, and for almost 2 years, I have been your Village of Mamaroneck trustee. Well, let me tell you, that 22 months went really quickly. It's been a wonderful experience, and I have learned so much. We have many accomplishments that I'm extremely proud of. Fiscal restraint, a thriving downtown, a user-friendly village website. We adopted a progressive ethics code that many other communities are noticing, and we have hired a new professional village manager and village attorney. Everywhere you look in Mamaroneck, there's progress. We are a better-run village today than we've ever been, and there's a buzz that Mamaroneck is a destination to go to. We feel pride in these accomplishments, yes, but there is much more to do. I'm running again because I believe I put in the hard work, and I now have the knowledge and the insight to be a better trustee in the next 2 years. I will continue to build on my experience, and I will continue to do the hard work that needs to be done. But I have to say I've tremendously enjoyed working with our volunteers, such as our all-volunteer firefighters, who actually gave me a ride in the truck, as well as our village staff, who work hard every day. I ask you to please consider re-electing me to a 2-year term, along with Mayor Kathy Savold and Trustee Nick Allison, because we want to keep the work going ahead to build the best village ever. Let's keep building a better Mamaroneck.
Thank you. The first question comes from the League of Women Voters, and it has to do with development and the current economic environment. Within the Village of Mamaroneck, there are building and real estate development projects that are stopped or stalled due to the change in the economic environment. What steps do you propose to take to address the problems for residents that result from such stalled projects? Ms. Rabinowitz.
Well, that is true. We do have some stalled projects. And one of the things that we did when our term began 2 years ago is we retooled the building department. The building department is better than ever. We have qualified professionals there who are now using tools to manage the process better. We've instituted a new computer system so that the building department doesn't have to use index cards anymore and can actually run through new processes. We've installed a GIS system, which is a global information system, to point out where our rivers are. It's a multi-layer software, and we're actually getting it done, finally. This village administration has been working very hard to develop those technologies and tools to run a more efficient building department, which will help us not have so many empty spaces because they will be managed better. And one other thing the village department of building department is doing, we're citing violations. So we have gotten the owner on Orienta Avenue to clean it up. We've gotten many other developers to try to move forward with their projects. And the other thing is we've tried to get the banks to be responsible as well. So I think we're doing many, many things. But it's all important to manage your money, and that's what we're trying to do every day, all the time. Look at the budget, get the departments that are making the most money, and keep our fees in line. So these are other ways the building department is adding to your village revenues.
Mr. Santoro.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, because that's one of the main things that we've been hearing out walking, our team out walking, from residents. People that are doing building and construction, through the building department, been waiting 1.5 to 2 years for permits to complete their projects. We need to have the building department be more hands-on. Go out, explain the problems, work these permits through to get these jobs accomplished in a period of time where it's going to be beneficial to everybody.
Thank you. The next question has to do with small business and the economy. Given the current economic conditions, what would you do to encourage the growth and retention of small businesses within the community? Mr. Santoro.
Another good question. The way the avenue is blooming right now is from work that was done from previous boards through the streetscape. That's what got these restaurants here. There were some open restaurants, and the landlords got together and said, look, it looks good. Let's work on our rent. Let's work on making it approachable for these people to come in and make this a better village. And that's what's going on now. There's very few storefronts that are empty. If they are empty, it's for a short period of time. So the landlords have been working together to get these projects accomplished.
Thank you. Ms. Rabinowitz.
Well, one of the responsibilities that I've taken on in my trusteeship, is that a word, is the stewardship of the downtown. The downtown I'm very passionate about. My background's in business, and actually I owned a small business at that. So I've worked very closely with the Chamber of Commerce as well as the Mamaroneck Avenue Task Force and other organizations to help the business as much as I possibly can. I've sold ads in booklets. I mean, I really will do anything to support the business community as I can. But actually, our building department has made this village more business friendly by easing the process of getting permits. So we have found that we are a business friendly community, and our downtown shows it. We are a destination. People come here. We do not have many open stores. We have so much to be proud of in the downtown area. I am very excited about continuing that work because I feel like I'm making an impact, and that's really why we serve, to try to do good that helps everyone so we can all enjoy dining in Mamaroneck and enjoying it with our friends. So that's what I've been able to accomplish.
Thank you. The next question is from two different people in the audience, Ms. Odirna and Ms. Puerto Rubin. Thank you. If elected, what are your priorities? The first things you'll do, Ms. Rabinowitz.
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is take a sigh of relief that the campaign is over. And the next thing I'm going to do is just continue with our priorities. This is a board, and I've been proud to be a member of this board, because we just don't do things haphazardly. We set our priorities. Number one, we had to hire a good village manager and attorney. Very key. Number two, we do need to hire an assistant village manager. It's an empty position. We only have one village manager. We need some other middle managers. Why it becomes a political issue, I do not understand. Because these are the professionals. They tell us what to do. We set policy. We do not make the hiring decisions. So we have to let the professional managers manage, and that's what we've done. We don't interfere with departments. We don't get work done for friends and point it out. We let the managers manage, and so I will continue that process. That is a priority. The other priority is staying with our environmental issues. We're a pretty green board. We believe very much in recycling. We believe in the ICLEI. We believe in all the important things that make our environment important. And also, there's a book of code that's this big. We have so many land use laws that can stop flooding, or certainly limit it to some extent, because we have so much impervious surfaces. So there's so many laws that we need to do, and that's where I'm going to continue working.
Thank you. Mr. Santoro.
Priorities, yes. Flooding is the #1 priority. Working with the Army Corps of Engineers, New York State, and the DEC, getting together and getting these issues, even the smallest things, as Norman stated previously, cleaning of the banks, the road to nowhere. Even though it's not our road to nowhere, it will be beneficial to our residents, so that's one of the priorities that we should look at. Our budget you know, not lowering taxes, that's a tough thing, but controlling our spending is a priority for us. The youth, trying to bring back our rec center, possibly a skateboard park, reaching out to the residents and see what's best for everybody.
Thank you. The next question is from both Rosalind Wood and Ms. Sambrook. Thank you. And the question is, what are your qualifications to be a trustee? And we will start with you, Mr. Santoro.
My qualifications. I'm a village resident 52 years. I've worked and for Westchester Joint Waterworks for 21 years as a water treatment plant operator. Controlled spending with the Town of Mamaroneck Fire Department as a chief for 6 years in the early 90s. Worked on a budget and always came in under budget with my budget. Getting along with the residents, volunteering. I ran the softball league for the village for 12 years. I took over in 1995. That was a deficit of the village of about $17,000. We turned that program around. We expanded it to resident teams and some non-resident teams who pay more money. I'm glad to report that that program now has turned a profit of over $6,000 to the village.
Thank you.
Is it my turn to answer?
Yes, Ms. Rabinowitz.
Thank you. What are my qualifications? It seems like I've always been doing volunteer work my whole life, and it's because I really believe in the spirit of volunteerism. Professionally, I've worked for 30 years in a number of different business enterprises, both in technology and in real estate. Education-wise, I have an undergraduate degree from University of Colorado, go Buffs, and I have an MBA from Pace University. You've seen me around here, everyone, because I've either been selling sponsorships for the Mamaroneck Junior Soccer League. I've been a volunteer and on the executive committee for the Harbor Street Fair. I've had 11 years of experience at the Rhinebeck PTSA in a variety of positions, and even just this year, I'm still selling memberships. I try to leave, they keep dragging me back. So there are just a number of the volunteer positions that I have. In addition now, as a trustee, I'm on the Cable Board of Control. I was a past member of the Recreation Board, which I found to be a very functional, wonderful board to work with. I also have been on as I said, the liaison to the Chamber of Commerce, the Mamaroneck Avenue Task Force, and, you know, just in terms of my life and my commitment, I've always felt that I have to make my community better than when I got there. And this community is a great community, and it's been my pleasure to serve, and I hope to continue.
Thank you. The next question has to do with the police department, and it is directed to you, Mr. Santoro, from Mr. D. Crescenzo. Thank you. Do you believe in a local hiring list for our police department? Mr. Santoro.
Yes, I do. I'll go on record as when I am elected and there is a position open for the police department, we will call for a local list. There's 87 local residents on this list right now, taxpayers and people that have lived in this community a lifetime, their families. A perfect example, 2 months ago where I live, I had a call from a neighbor. The neighbor was, his daughter tried to get a hold of him for 2 days. She lived in North Carolina. We tried to get into his apartment, couldn't get it. Called the police department, they send a police officer down there. Resident who lives in the village, who lived in our co-op. He knew the gentleman perfectly. The man was on the floor for 2 days. The police officer went, got a ladder, went up to the window, called this individual by his first name. It made more of a feeling for this guy that was on the floor that there was somebody there that knew him and knew what was going on and gave a little special effort to him. Yes, I will hire locally.
Thank you. Ms. Rabinowitz, you have the opportunity to answer this if you care to.
Well, I think it has to be a balancing act. I think you have to look at the most qualified individuals for the job. Wouldn't that be the way you would want to hire in any position? As a manager, would you want a manager who doesn't hire the best person they can get? I wouldn't. I would hire the best person. So whether it comes locally or from a wider list, I think that has to be determined at the time. You know, right now, the list, this is all new to most people, but the list has a cycle. So when you're at the end of the cycle, you get towards the end of the list, and the test scores are not very high. So do you want to hire a low-end test score person, or do you want to hire someone who is higher, more qualified, or has tested better? So I just think, I can't answer that specifically. I think you need to look at where you are on the list and determine who's the best candidate for the job.
Thank you. The next question is from Ms. Sambrook, and it has to do with taxes. And Ms. Rabinowitz, you're going to go first.
Okay.
What is your plan to lower taxes?
Well, there's many things. I feel really good that we have been very fiscally responsible in terms of looking at the budget. In fact, 6 to 9 months ago, we saw that the economy was not looking good. So we asked our department heads to please try to scale back. So therefore, in our last fiscal year, we were able to save $1.5 million. Now, that didn't go back in anybody's pocket. What it did was help cushion our reserve account. We have very low funds that are disproportionate with what we're supposed to have per our auditors. So all we're trying to do is, like any prudent household, save some money for a rainy day, for when your boiler goes and it's $8,000. You need to have that money. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build up our reserve account responsibly so that when these catastrophic events happen, we're prepared for them. We're also combining as many services as possible. Consolidation makes so much sense, but we have to look and see how the services are affected, but we're 100% behind consolidation. Our tax rates increases have been among the lowest. Last year was only 3.98%. The year before that was 4.35%. Those have been the 2 years that Mayor Savolt and I have been in office. Previous to that, it was 5.7%. And it could have even been much higher, except that they took money from our surplus account to pay for legal bills. So we're not doing that anymore. You want transparency? We're transparent.
Thank you. Mr. Santoro.
First thing I do is get the Budget Committee back on board. As previously stated, they haven't met in maybe 6 to 8 months. That should be a committee that should be working all year long, looking to save money. A line-by-line budget item, getting the department heads together, asking them where they can cut back. Our goal is to get a 10% cutback on all the departments. Whether that happens and it is feasible, time will tell. But by getting a 10% surplus, what this present board wants to do is by the taxpayers, by charging them more tax so they can get their 10% surplus. That's not the answer. The town of Rye had a 17% decrease in their taxes for the year. Sitting down with them, getting some idea, seeing how they did it, that would work fine. Getting their budget committee together with our budget committee might be another idea.
Thank you. The following question is from Mr. DiCrescenzo again, and it's directed to the trustee candidates, and I'm going to ask it in the second round as well. It has to do with shovel-ready projects in the village, and I'm going to start with you, Ms. Rabinowitz. What shovel-ready projects are available to the village right now?
I would love to know, because right now, I don't believe that there are any that meet the federal guidelines, and I've been hearing that, and all I keep hearing about is the road to nowhere, which really takes care of just a handful of people's problems. That's not what we're about. We're about using money and resources to solve the most people's problems that we can be effective with. This is not just for a handful. This is not government for just the few. This is the government for everybody. So we look at every single project and we determine how many people will benefit. And if the benefit group is larger than some special interest groups, then that's what gets done. We try to be fair. I think that's the only way you can run a government. Maybe I'm idealistic, but so what?
Thank you. Mr. Santoro.
Just listen to that last comment, only projects that will help a few individuals. If I know a project will help one person with flooding, I would do it. And the road to nowhere is one project that would help more than one person. It has an effect where once that road is opened up and it acts like a dam, we get that opened up where the water can flow more freely to come down the harbor, we'll help more than one person, a few individuals. We're not just here to help a few individuals, we're here to help everybody.
Thank you. We're going to go back to some league questions because we still have some time in the question and answer period. And the next question I'm going to direct first to you, Mr. Santoro. What do you see as the biggest issue facing the village today, and how do you propose to address it?
Biggest issue right now is flooding. We've talked about that all night. Norman talked about it, and the mayor's talked about it, and I think Randy has talked about it. It's a priority on this team, Unification State. That is the number one priority, is flooding. We will be working with our people up in Albany to try to get some funds, working with the DEC to see what projects that we can do today that will help us tomorrow.
Thank you. Ms. Rabinowitz.
Yes. Well, of course, flooding is very important, but remember, it's been an issue here in the village for generations. I mean, I had one woman who just came up to me and she said, "Why couldn't you fix something 30 years ago when I last flooded?" I was like, I was in high school. But that doesn't negate the pain, and believe me, we're not dismissing it. It's very important. If you've had everything ruined in your house, you feel awful, and it's a wound that doesn't heal quickly. We understand that pain, but remember that we are just one level of government. There are definitely projects that we are doing. We're doing what we can do. They have no greater gift over the lawyers of the state and the Army Corps of Engineers than we do. They have no magic wand to make lawyers agree. If anyone's worked with lawyers, you know how hard that is to make them agree. And so we have no control over that, but we will press on, and thus we are. But setting priorities is what we do, and we do that well. So that just shows you that how fiscally unresponsible he is. If one person, no, that doesn't work. You only have, like everyone does in their family budget, we have limited funds. You have to decide what your family wants. We have to decide what our family, the village, wants and needs most. And in terms of saving money, you know, we looked at the police department, number one, and we came up with tremendous efficiencies there, and we had the least amount of reported problems with how the police came across to the public this summer. The second department is the Department of Public Works. That's why we're looking at all issues. We're looking at how to make that department better, and if one of it turns out to be, let's study the trash collection too. There is
Thank you.
nothing wrong with studying.
The next question has to do with Harbor Island Park. Harbor Island Park has been described as a jewel in the village. Describe what you believe to be an appropriate evolution of Harbor Island Park for the community, and how should the village protect and foster this resource? Ms. Rabinowitz.
I definitely agree that Harbor Island is our jewel on the Sound. And there's a couple things that are happening, and once again, they're not happening quickly. But that's how government is. Things do take time. We're all adults. We know things take time. We wish things were faster. But those things we know we have to do methodically, logically, one at a time. So what are we doing? Number one, the water treatment plant is going to be renovated. That's Westchester County. When that begins, the other thing we're working on is getting sport time moved. So the bubble will be moved, opening up more fields. Number three, anyone who's ever played soccer there knows it's mushy. So what we have to do is get drainage there. We're going to open up the fields to allow better play time. And besides, now our now our rec department is going to be looking at all of our parks. Let's look at all the parks so we have more room to play. And the final thing I want to say, one of the things that I have personally just championed, because I want someone to do it, is the Taylor's Lane project. So I can announce to you that through Mr. Slingerland, we are finally making some progress. We actually changed engineering companies, and so now we kept wanting the other guys to finish, but they were never finishing. So now we're going to finish. The residents of Shadow Lane see an end in sight. God bless them. They have been so patient, and we're going to remediate that situation and hopefully put it to use as a field. So this board is really doing things that affect people's lives.
Thank you. Mr. Santoro.
Harbor Island Park, it is a jewel. It should be the jewel. It's the number one in the Sound Shore. Just running softball league. We have teams coming from Greenwich, Portchester, Yonkers playing here. They can't wait to come here. We need to get our Harbor Island committee back together that was formed in one of the past administrations. See what plans are feasible in this economy and what to do. The Harbor Island Conservancy has raised money. They're looking to do beautification to the entrance to the harbor. The money is already there, but the project is not being pushed forward. For what reason, I don't know. Harbor Island needs to be addressed to get more playing fields for the kids and to see what's feasible in this economy. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more question. For 2 years in a row, Westchester County has been ranked the highest taxed county in the United States. What other sources of revenue do you think the village might be able to pursue? And what cuts, if any, in services would you support to alleviate the tax burden on our residents? Mr. Santoro.
At this time, we would not support to cut any services at this time. These things need to be looked at. Consolidation is a step in the right direction. Our police department has a SWAT team with the town of Mamaroneck and with Larchmont. If it's ever needed, they go into action, everybody works together. Maybe consolidating with the garbage. These things, everything needs to be looked at. And this committee hopefully will look at everything and come back with a report that we can push forward to save money for this community.
Thank you. Ms. Rabinowitz.
Well, 25% of our taxes approximately are village taxes. The other 75% are school taxes as well as county taxes. So we only have some ability to alter that 25%. What we've done is manyfold. We've kept down legal fees 75%. That's huge. We've avoided many costly lawsuits by the stewardship of our village attorney. We have looked at our fee structure and in fact raised almost all of our fees. Fees are actually a good way for services because it's actually, if you take out a permit, you pay for a permit. So people that are, taxes that are unfair, taxes that are spread across the board. The biggest thing is the water fund. We used to subsidize water fund. How fair is that? That means if you have a swimming pool, you're paying the same rate as I am who don't. So by making it a true fee for service and in fact not allowing the village budget to be a surplus to the joint waterworks, which we really have to credit Mayor Savolt, because besides being our mayor, she also serves on the Westchester Joint Waterworks with the supervisors of both Harrison and Mamaroneck. So she's got another big job there, and we have really done some major work in terms of getting the waterworks in order. And that's our water, folks. So I think it's important.
Thank you. We're now going to move to closing statements, and each of you have up to a minute and a half to summarize and close up. And since, Mr. Santoro, you started first, I'm going to start with you, Ms. Rabinowitz.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this event together, and thank you, Noreen, and thank Lori, our timekeeper. And thank LMC-TV for broadcasting this. It's important information. 2 years is too short a time to complete all of our goals. Mamaroneck is my beloved home, and my family has built a wonderful life here. But there's a special, unique sense of community that I especially love in Mamaroneck, and one of the things that's great has been my ability to contribute to that to make it even better. Much has been accomplished, and much remains to be done. The village does business better than it did 2 years ago, and the public views Mamaroneck Village in a better light than it ever has. First, we approved the website, which is the opening to our village, and we have awesome recycling efforts of 55%, which we will probably make better, and then balance the priorities with garbage collection. And we plan to be more green in the future. But this is the team that can lead Mamaroneck the best. We understand budgets, technology, and ways to make our employees more productive. We have a record that I'll be happy to stand on of reducing expenses, and in the last fiscal year saved $1.5 million. We'll continue to look for savings and keep your taxes low. So let's keep on building a better Mamaroneck with my team, with Kathy's team, with Mayor Kathy Savolt, with Trustee Nick Allison, and myself, Randy Rabinowitz. So come out and vote on November 3rd. We appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Santoro?
Yeah, my closing, I'd just like to correct one comment my opponent has made. Something about water and swimming pools, and we pay the same rate. The Waterworks is a separate entity from this village. The mayor sits on the board, town supervisor and the town of Harrison sits on the board. They have control of what goes on in the waterworks. Rates are controlled. They've been going up to come in line with everything else to help the waterworks be more productive financially. The more water you use, the more water you pay. So I don't know what this thing about the swimming pool was all about. But the reason why I think the taxpayers should vote for me and my team is because I'm a long lifetime resident of the village of Mamaroneck. I'm dedicated to encouraging volunteer service. My past experience in leadership roles were proven success. I will take this position seriously and will serve with pride. We'll work to keep the budget in line. We'll work with county, state, and federal officials in securing grants for village projects. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to ask Mr. Allison and Ms. Ybarra to come forward, and if there are any additional questions for the trustees. Congratulations. Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that more? Oh, for these two? For Allison and Ybarra? If there are any other questions for the second round of trustee candidates, I'd please bring them up. Any side you want. Okay. Okay.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Hi.
Good. Is it Ybarra? Ybarra. This meeting, we're going to meet the two candidates who are running for the one-year unexpired term on the Village Board of Trustees. And I would like to introduce first Ms. Marianne Ybarra, who is going to be listed on the Republican, the Conservative, and the Taxpayers Relief line. And to my left, Mr. Nicholas Allison, who is an appointed incumbent and will be listed on the Democratic line. They have drawn lots for the order of speaking, and Ms. Ybarra, you are going first in the opening statements.
Hi. In case people out there don't know who I am, I'm Marianne Rubino Ybarra. And what I'm about is inclusion instead of exclusion of our village residents and our small businesses in our village. Our ticket here is very unique tonight because we're the unification slate. And the reason why we're the unification slate is because we have an independent running for mayor, a Republican running for trustee, and a Democrat, who's me, running for the unexpired term of trustee. Even though we're all different parties and we all have different opinions, we all have the same goals and values for our village of Mamaroneck. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Allison?
Thank you, Noreen, League of Women Voters, and the LMC-TV for your time. My name's Nick Allison, and I'm a trustee here in Mamaroneck. I was born in Westchester and lived here most of my life. My father was a fireman, and my grandfather was a bus driver. My wife and I chose to live here in Mamaroneck with our 3 children because we love the community and the schools. I've been working for the same firm for 21 years in the Information Technology Department. I manage a team of engineers who build and maintain large computer systems in multiple data centers to support the financial industry. My team works on multiple projects at the same time, many of them with budgets in the millions of dollars, much like the village of Mamaroneck does today. Nothing in my job gets done without strong leadership, good process, and open communication. We work with tight deadlines and high expectations. My job is to set goals, distribute responsibilities, and manage the resources and the finances, and deliver the result at the end. In addition to my formal education, I hold a certification in process management. Since I joined the board here, I've been appointed liaison to the fire department, to the Tri-Municipal Shared Services Committee, and the Flood Mitigation Action Committee. We've only begun to explore the opportunities for saving money, and I'm excited to continue. The world has changed. We have fiscal and environmental challenges before us in the 21st century. The budget of this village is $29 million. We can't expect to run it the way it was when it was $5 million. We need to bring sound management and good experience to the boards and committees while preserving the character of this village. And my experience speaks to that.
Thank you. I'm going to start again with questions from the League of Women Voters. The first question has to do with flooding. In April of 2007, the residents of Mamaroneck suffered from a dreadful flood. The Army Corps of Engineers has been studying the problem. What immediate steps and long-term steps should the village take to assist the residents of the flood zone who continue to remain vulnerable? Mr. Allison, you're first.
Well, that's a great question. And I'm glad you put it in the context that you did, that there's immediate steps and long-term steps, because that shows that it's a complicated problem. There is no easy solution to flooding. As anybody who's lived in this village for any period of time knows, we're at the bottom of a watershed that empties downhill into us, and water knows no municipal boundaries and doesn't care. But we have taken steps as a board to mitigate flooding. We've applied for and received permits from the Army Corps of Engineers to do work by hand from the banks, removing silt. We've also borrowed the Menzie mucker from the Harrison community to accomplish that task. And that work will begin. We've made an application for the all-hazard, multi-hazard plan at the State Emergency Management Office, and it's completed. We are in line to apply for grants, at basically what that means. The building department is going to hold a forum to work with individuals to tell them ways that they can mitigate flooding in their own homes, like maybe putting backflow devices in their sewer. We're working with upstream communities, as the mayor has spoken about. We've done a spring cleanup and removed 9 tons of debris from the rivers. We've instituted routine maintenance. We clean the sewer, we clean the catch basins, we clean the sewers. We're reviewing our land use and stormwater laws. The Road to Nowhere, as has been spoken about, is a Harrison project. It's not a Mamaroneck project, and we can only work with that community to do that. We've enacted stormwater laws, and that's my answer. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Ybarra?
Okay. I am very familiar with the flooding in our village of Mamaroneck, because in that 2007, I got flooded twice in 6 weeks. What we can do for now is start some projects, shovel projects. Go into the water, take the debris away from the banks. Maybe build your retaining walls. Clear out the silt. I was at a meeting at the end of September, and I asked where we were with the Harrison and getting the muck, whatever, into the water. They couldn't tell. They said that they were going to sign contracts. They were going to sign an agreement. Well, that's almost a month. Okay. When is it going to go into the water? I think we can actually work with Harrison to take care of that road to nowhere. We can go to the 95 where the river goes through the overpass, clear out that. I think we can also do the reservoir grates. Keep a regular maintenance of that grate instead of doing it every time do it every 6 months. Don't do it once a year. We need to have regular maintenance of our catch basins, because we've been walking the areas, and those catch basins, some of them out there have weeds growing out of them. I don't understand how, they're saying that we have maintained our catch basins. We haven't.
Thank you. The next question is also from the League and has to do with the Mamaroneck Avenue. For the past year or two, Mamaroneck Avenue has seen a proliferation of restaurants and food establishments, and more applications are pending for additional restaurants. Do you believe that the local government should encourage the diversification of businesses on its principal commercial street? And if so, what would you do to encourage or foster the growth of other businesses? The second part, also, do you see parking as a problem for both the businesses and customers, and how would you address that concern? Ms. Ybarra.
I would definitely encourage the businesses on Mamaroneck Avenue, let them come in. It makes our downtown look really nice. But you need to address a few issues like the parking. I think what you need to do is to look into maybe tier parking, maybe looking to the crane that they have in the cities, where you take the car, they pull them up, you have more parking. That's definitely a problem.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Allison.
That's a great question as well. But encouraging diversification of businesses, you have to remember, we are the government of the village. We're not the landlords. We don't own the buildings. We can't tell the landlords who to rent to and what businesses to bring in. That's why in some communities you see an overwhelming number of dollar stores and wireless stores. What you can do as a village is, put policies in place, set direction, and try to hope that the right businesses come to town, and then deal with the issues that arise as they do. As far as parking deck and cranes go, yeah, I think parking is a problem, and I think a crane and a parking solution might be a good problem, but that's a private business owner's solution to a problem that the village, I'm not sure, can encourage.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. D. Crescenzo, who is in the back, and is addressed to both of you. And we're going to continue on this theme of small businesses. How would you support small businesses in the village? Mr. Allison.
Well, there's a number of volunteer commissions and boards that are in place that support small businesses today. One of them being the Mamaroneck Chamber of Commerce that my opponent is so happy to raise the flag of every time he's either on television or in front of the board. But remember, that's a Mamaroneck Chamber of Commerce sign, not a candidate sign. That's one way to encourage businesses, to continue to work with let the Chamber of Commerce do its job, actually, to provide a climate for business owners to come in, which is what I think you've seen happen in the village of Mamaroneck. Once, as Mr. Santoro mentioned, the streetscape project was done, businesses started to come in because there was a place for them to rest. But it also is a result of this board's working with the building department to clean up the processes, automate the back-end processes to allow these businesses to flourish when they come in, and to do projects and renovations and beautify the downtown. I think that allowing setting the climate as a board of trustees, but allowing the volunteer commissions that already exist in place to do their job is the way to encourage business.
Thank you. Ms. Ybarra.
I would definitely support the businesses by shopping like I normally do now. But I would also take a look at that code of ethics that the Village of Mamaroneck has. You have a lot of your village employees that would love to shop in the village, but they're afraid because it's against their code of ethics. That's what they're saying. I mean, it's written in such a way that they're afraid to shop. That would be the first thing I would look at. The second thing would be, listen to what they have to say. People are complaining about there's no parking, the small business owners. Look at something into doing a tier parking. Like, the town of Mamaroneck just did a tier parking for their overnights. Look into something like that for our businesses.
Thank you. The next question is, we're going to replay some of the ones we heard previously from Ms. O'Dearna and Ms. Puerto Rubin. And it's, if elected, what are your priorities? What are the first things you are going to do? Ms. Ybarra.
First thing I'm gonna do is open up our meetings, make it where people can actually talk and speak what they would like to speak, instead of having them talk after things are voted on. Definitely look at the budgets, definitely look at taxes. I mean, there's so much that you can do. Look at the flooding issues. You know, get together with groups like Habitat for Humanity, see what they say. Maybe they have some suggestions on how to clear up the flooding.
Thank you. Mr. Allison.
Well, if opening meetings up means allowing gentlemen like the gentleman who was here today to use four-letter words in public, then I'm not sure that open meetings is actually a good idea. However, what my priorities would be, one of them would be flooding, absolutely. Flooding is, as I said, a complicated problem that affects every village resident in this town, not just the folks who flood when the rivers flood, but the folks who flood when there's a nor'easter and it pushes the tidal surge up into Orienta and Shore Acres. And as I've said, this board has started and will continue to work with the Army Corps of Engineers. Think about the Army Corps of Engineers project and the idea that there are shovel-ready projects that the village could do. I'm not really sure what those shovel-ready projects are. I know shovel-ready projects is a nice keyword, but if we were to undertake some of the the things that the federal government might undertake for us. We're looking at at projects that might be $150 million. And in a village with a budget of only $29 million, it's tough to justify a $150 million project. We've got to do the little things that we can do. We've got to pay attention to the streams and remove silt. We've got to pay attention to the catch basins. And yes, weeds do grow in the catch basins because that's what happens in a natural environment. We've got to continue to do the spring cleanup. We've got to continue to the routine maintenance that we've undertaken. We've got to work with other communities as we've already done.
Thank you. The next question is for Mr. Wood. Is he still here? He was here before. He left. Okay. Then Ms. Sandbrook. What is your plan to lower taxes? Mr. Allison.
Lowering taxes. Well, if you listen to the opponents here, they want to do every project. I think Lou said that if there was a project that would help one flooding victim, he would do it. Well, there's 19,000 residents in the village of Mamaroneck, so that's quite a few projects. I don't think you control spending by doing a project for every individual, although it's a nice thought, and I applaud his thought. Lowering taxes is done through good management. It's done through hands-on management, not hands-off management, by letting committees decide everything, instituting maybe a litigation committee, a bunch of lawyers in a room. We need to get our hands on every process that runs in this village and find the efficiencies in it. We need to watch every dollar spent. What you see happen here twice a month is a line-by-line budget review when we pay the bills. I get that bill on Friday afternoon, and I go through every single line on it, line by line, and that's how we control spending. We put processes in place, we put efficient managers in place who know what they're doing, and we control costs.
Thank you. Ms. Ybarra.
Well, definitely, we need a line-by-line review of the budget. We need to look at things in the budget that we can eliminate that aren't utilizing, or utilizing, that are good for us. Definitely, we would have to, work like it's our own budget at our own house. We would definitely look and say, okay, how can I do more with less money? We need to, maybe go to the town of Rye, talk to the town of Rye and say, okay, fine, you guys, you cut your taxes by 17%. Can you show us different ways on how you did it, what we can actually eliminate, what we can eliminate? What would be, what would be good to actually, help us?
Thank you. Is Mr. D. Crescenzo still here? He's on the phone?
We can get his question if he's on the phone, right?
If he's in the building. Is he still here?
Mr. D. Crescenzo. Paging, Mr. D. Crescenzo.
Well, I'll ask a lead question while we're waiting to. Let's go back to Harbor Island Park and get your views on Harbor Island Park. This is a lead question. Harbor Island Park has been described as a jewel in the village. Describe what you believe to be an appropriate evolution of Harbor Island Park for the community, and how should the village protect and foster this resource? Ms. Ybarra.
Well, I remember when I was like 4 years old swimming in the harbor. I definitely think we need to bring back the water quality in the harbor so we can actually have people come to our harbor and use our harbor rather than go to Rye Beach or Oakland Beach. I think I think what we need to also look at is how we can bring other activities to Harbor Island. Maybe get a rec center there, so there will be more activities for people to be there. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Allison.
Sure. Well, first I want to go back to this question of 17% reduction in taxes in the town of Rye. I live in the town of Rye, and for anybody who doesn't know, the reduction in taxes was basically an accounting move. The town of Rye held money in abeyance for the county, and so by not holding that money, they were able to reduce fees. I wish there were simple fixes like that in the village of Mamaroneck. But as far as a jewel of the village, I agree 100% that the harbor is a jewel. And I really like to listen to the stories about swimming in the harbor. But frankly, the harbor was fouled by an unmaintained infrastructure by previous administrations. There was a sewer pipe on Frank Avenue that's been dumping raw sewage into the harbor since God knows when. But since the previous administrations that maybe didn't pay attention to the infrastructure projects that we need to pay attention to, didn't do the work they needed to do, we now suffer from a harbor that has bacteria in it. But we are working on re-sleeving that sewer line and improving the quality of the water.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. Di Crescenzo, who has returned. And the question has to do with transparency in village government. What would you do to improve transparency in our village government? Mr. Allison.
Improving transparency in government, that's another nice catchphrase. But I think that improving transparency, in my estimation, is publishing documents ahead of time, which was something that this board has taken as a priority and done. You can review any board's minutes online or call down to the village and have them sent to you. We publish as much of the minutia of what goes on in the village government as we possibly can on our new website. As Mr. Rosenblum very well knows, you can attend any open meeting in the village. There are no closed meetings, so transparency exists. I've seen Mr. Rosenblum's smiling face at quite a few working sessions of the Board of Trustees. So I know that the information that this ticket has used in their campaign is gained through the transparency of the government that exists today. So I'm not sure that transparency is a problem. However, any opportunity to provide village residents with information is available, that can be made available, will be done. We publish minutes on the internet, as I've said, on the website, as I've said. We allow you to write in a letter, an email, a phone call into the village offices that will be read into the record of any meeting that takes place in the village today. I believe we work in a very transparent government.
Thank you. Ms. Ybarra.
Okay, I kind of disagree with that. Sure, you can get all the information on the website, and you can get whatever paperwork you need there. But when it comes time to a meeting, people that come in to speak are either told they're out of line and they need to sit down, or they also are told that they can speak after something has been voted on. So why would you want to speak after something was voted on? I think the people should be able to state their opinion, because you never know. By them stating their opinion, it would change my vote that I already have, and maybe it would change other people on the board's vote for what to change. Okay, maybe that's right. That's an easier way to do it. You know, we'll look into it, we'll hold it over. You need to include everyone in this village, not just the people that are on the Board of Trustees.
Thank you. The next question is from the League, and it has to do with shared services. Over many years, there have been various studies that cite as wasteful the multiplicity of government entities and overlap of municipal services. What specific services, if any, would you consider consolidating, and with whom? And how would you consolidate? Ms. Ybarra.
Well, we already have a consolidation of the ambulance district. That works out pretty well. I think what we need to do is consolidate other departments. Maybe our building department and the Village of Mamaroneck Building Department can share facts and stuff, because apparently our village building department now has a program that they don't have to use index cards for anymore. I mean, we happen to use index cards, but we also have a computer system at the town that works. Maybe we can all get together, instead of having people wait a year and a half for a permit, and bring them back to the table and go before the zoning board again because they can't get certain permits from our building department. Definitely the senior center was a good move. It shows that, you know, they're all getting together. Other services that I'd like to see, I really couldn't tell you. We'd have to look at, would it be feasible and would it benefit our taxpayers and our residents?
Thank you. Mr. Allison?
Shared services is a complicated topic. I sit on the Tri-Municipal Shared Services Committee, and I discussed this topic with the Village of Mamaroneck representatives, the Town of Mamaroneck representatives, and the Village of Larchmont representatives at least twice a month, and if not more, through emails and phone calls. And the village is trying very hard with its neighboring communities to find opportunities to share services. Some of the things that my opponent has said might be reductions in departmental, in departments that, you know, maybe can't afford to, maybe can't afford a reduction. I think you need to look at things outside of just consolidating services, because frankly, services are something we all like to pay for. You want the cops to show up when you, when you have a gentleman lying on the floor. You want the cops to show up if you have an incident. So that's a service I think we all agree we like to pay for. You need to look at things like consolidating back office operations, IT operations, where maybe you've got a separate database in one building and a database in another building, or a network in one building and a network in another building that could be managed by one computer system. That's something I do every day in my job. Shared services is a complicated topic, and I think you need to look at each thing individually before you go out and recommend reduction of services.
Thank you. The next question has to do with countywide reassessment. Do you support a countywide reassessment of property taxes? And what is the basis for your support or your non-support? Mr. Allison.
I think that a countywide reassessment desperately needs to be done. I think there's inequities you can find all around the county. I happen to live in the town of Rye, which has already been reassessed, and we are pretty current as far as, and we're actually redoing our assessments right now. But it's something that needs to be done at the county needs to champion this. The county needs to come in and do this countywide. Half our village is already done.
Thank you. Ms. Ybarra?
I definitely think we need a countywide reassessment, because the last reassessment that was done was in 1968 by the county. You definitely need it, because there are houses out there that are not paying their fair share of taxes. I don't think the municipality itself should do it. I think it should become a group with other municipalities and the county of Westchester.
Thank you. The next question has to do with taxes. For 2 years in a row, Westchester County has been ranked the highest tax county in the United States. What other sources of revenue do you think the village might be able to pursue, and what cuts, if any, in services would you support to alleviate the tax burden on the residents? Ms. Ybarra.
Well, I wouldn't support any cuts right now. You need to look at each individual item that you're going to be looking to cut. Grants, maybe for different projects that we might be looking into. You need to, work on grants. You need to maybe work with your county level and your state levels for money that might be available up there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Allison?
I've said this at least twice tonight, and I'll say it probably a few more times. Taxes is a complicated problem, and just cutting them sounds like a good thing to do. I sure would support it if someone could tell me how. You've got to look at everything you do. This village, the village taxes here are about 25% of what you pay as far as the property tax goes. As far as cutting back services go, you can't cut back emergency services, so there's no room there to cut back. I don't think anybody here would volunteer for that. You need to build efficiencies into processes. You need to look at departments and find out maybe where they're using index cards to do something that could have been done, on a computer in a day that might take a week on index cards. You need to look at those kind of things. But cutting back services, I'm not sure that there's a lot of room to cut back services.
Thank you. Mr. DiCrescenzo, I have a question on one of your questions here. And even though I asked it previously, with regard to the shovel-ready projects, are we talking about flood mitigation projects or stimulus funding projects, or both? Flood mitigation, okay. Then the next question, I'm cleaning up my audience questions, Mr. DiCrescenzo. It has to do with flood mitigation. And it's directed to you, Ms. Ybarra. What shovel-ready projects are available to the village right now?
Well, cleaning the grates at the dam, cleaning our overpasses on I-95, cleaning the rivers, making sure they're not dumping grounds, and having the other municipalities that border our rivers maintain their trees and roots and anything that will add to flooding in our area. I think you should also do some retaining walls and raise retaining walls, stuff that's easy where our volunteers, that we can actually get volunteers to go into the river and get volunteers to come in and help.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Allison, do you wish to comment on that question?
Yeah, I do, because I like the phrase shovel-ready projects. It was a great phrase used when they were trying to sell the stimulus plan to the country at the beginning of this year. And I believe that's where shovel-ready projects comes from. Shovel-ready projects in Mamaroneck. Well, we've got a few. There's the Menzie Mucker, which we're going to put in the rivers to remove silt. There's a shovel-ready project. Cleaning the sewer grates, well, we've already instituted a program to do that, but I'm glad that our opponents have recognized that, and we will continue to do that. As far as going into the rivers themselves with Boy Scouts, as Mr. Rosenblum recommended, I'm not really sure, A, that that's safe, and B, that the private land that borders the riverbanks, I'm not sure that the private landowners want the Boy Scouts trooping up and down in the rivers and cleaning up. So as far as shovel-ready projects go, it's a nice catchphrase. I'm not really sure that they've actually got a plan.
Okay, thank you. 3 audience members all asked the same question, and so I'm going to end this question and answer period with a common question from Mr. Sharp, Mr. Wood, and Ms. Sambrook. Ms. Wood and Ms. Sambrook. What qualifies you to be a trustee? Ms. Ybarra.
Okay, I'm a lifelong resident of the village of Mamaroneck. I've worked for the town of Mamaroneck for the past 20 years. Before that, I worked for the county of Westchester, so I feel my experience with working for the town for the many years that I did will give me a handle on how to, has actually taught me how to deal with the day-to-day problems and solutions that may be needed in the village of Mamaroneck.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Allison?
Well, you're stealing my thunder, because those are going to be my closing remarks, but
Well, you can say it twice.
okay. As far as my qualifications go, I've been an IT manager for 21 years and worked on multiple projects. I don't know if anybody knows this, but what I do is I work for a financial services firm that provides the back office for all the trading and all the stock exchanges in the country today. One of the things that I do is I do disaster recovery preparation and exercises, which means I plan for the worst while I hope for the best. I've got data centers locally and data centers in far regions. Getting projects done in diverse environments with employees that don't work locally or that don't always work locally, but some that do, and getting those projects pushed through is one of my fortes. I've won 2 quality awards in my organization for getting projects done. This year, in fact, this week I'm up for a quality award for saving the company $400,000 on a project that I've been managing personally myself. I've got the education, I've got the experience. I believe those are my qualifications.
Okay. We're now going to move on to closing statements, and since in the beginning, Ms. Ybarra began, for this portion, Mr. Allison, you are going to begin.
Tonight you've heard my opponents speak on various issues. From Kathy, Randy, and I, you've heard a record of real accomplishments and clearly articulated plans. It's up for you, the voter, to decide who's better equipped to handle the affairs of this village. I got 21 years of management experience. I've served the Stewart Avenue Association as its president and local scouts as the den leader and treasurer. I already serve on some of the committees that make a difference in our community. I'm eager to play a part with your help in preparing us for the future. My opponent and her running mates can speak to their deep roots and lifelong residency as qualifications, and while that's valuable, I don't believe it speaks to the skills required to remain focused, see the real issues, and make the right choices for the taxpayers, the residents, or the business owners, for each and every taxpayer, resident, and business owner. The world has changed, and we have fiscal and environmental challenges before us. Running this village in today's world will not be easy. We can't expect to do it the way it was done in the past. We've all paid the price for poor choices in the past and poor management. We need to be innovative, and we need to see the big picture. My running mates and I have the skills, the experience, and the record to keep our village moving forward. I believe the choice is clear, and I hope you agree. Thanks again to Noreen, the moderator, the League of Women Voters, and LMC-TV. And also thanks to my running mates, Kathy Savolt and Randy Rabinowitz. Please remember to vote on November 3rd.
Thank you. Ms. Ybarra.
Okay. I feel that you should consider our unification team because we all have lifelong experience in the village, lifelong residency in the village of Mamaroneck. We've all been here through the problems that the village has had in the past, and hopefully will be here when they have them in the future. We hope that you will consider us, 3 different parties on the unification slate, running for trustee as a Democrat on the lone Democrat on the ticket. I feel that if you consider us, we will listen to what our volunteers have to say, and we're very approachable, and you won't have to, be afraid to come to a meeting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we're now going to take a short break, and I'd ask Judy Myers. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
To the uncontested races, and first we're going to have a conversation with the candidate for the District 7 representative for the County Board of Legislators. I'd like to introduce Ms. Judy Myers, who's the current incumbent. She will be listed on the Democratic and the Working Families line. There is no opening statements. There are no opening statements in this segment, so I'm going to jump right into the questions. The first one has to do with the fair housing settlement. The county recently entered into a settlement of a housing discrimination lawsuit that will require it to spend approximately $51.6 million over 7 years to build 750 homes and to market them aggressively to Black and Hispanic residents of the New York City area. The lawsuit alleged that the county had made false statements on federal applications about its efforts to integrate housing. Do you support the settlement, and did you believe the county had made false statements?
Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you who are sticking it out and still here. Thank you, Noreen, and thank you, League of Women Voters, for hosting this tonight. I did vote in favor of settling this lawsuit, this housing lawsuit. It's long and involved. Actually, LMC will be running this week, I assume, the taping of a meeting that we held this morning with the Larchmont Mamaroneck Summit, in which we actually spent a good hour discussing the settlement. But in a nutshell, this was a lawsuit involving a false claim for federal dollars, the same federal dollars that come in large part to Mamaroneck Village, the CDBG money. The county has to sign a form saying that they have analyzed all of the impediments to fair housing. The county, for the past 30 years, under 3 different administrations, has maintained that the largest impediment to affordable and fair housing in this county is income. The idea being, if you can afford to live somewhere, it doesn't matter who, what, where you are from, who you are, whatever, as long as you can pay for it. The lawsuit disagreed and said that we had not looked at race as an impediment to fair housing, because we were told by so many professionals that it would be a long, involved case that would probably result in a lot of money. We settled, and the result is what you heard before.
Thank you. And a follow-up question. How do you expect fully developed communities to generate this housing? And what would be the ramifications if the communities cannot successfully implement the settlement?
There are 31 eligible communities in Westchester County, 31 out of the 43 municipalities. And we have 7 years to build 750 units. The county in the past 10 years has built 1,700 units of affordable housing, fair and affordable housing. It's not necessarily where there is land. There are a lot of different ways to achieve affordability, whether it's in existing buildings, existing apartments, existing two-family homes. There are, thanks to unfortunately, the economy, there are a number of development projects in Westchester County that have stalled because of loss of funding through their lending institutions. Many of these developers are coming to the county right now. We're in the process of taking all names and numbers of everyone who has a potential project that they would like to move forward on with some help from the county, and either make it all affordable or include it does seem to be a great popularity lately for including affordable along with unaffordable units in the same building. We're talking about rentals and ownership units. These are for people who earn no greater than approximately 60% of the county median income, which is quite high, as you know. So these are for working individuals.
Thank you. The next question has to do with taxes. As we've said before, Westchester County has been identified as the highest tax county in the country for 2 years in a row. And recently, the state government has indicated that our economic conditions are no better and is calling for more state cutbacks. What can the county government do to reduce taxes on its county residents? Can you identify any cutbacks or reductions in services that you would be willing to support?
Yes, I think we will be seeing a great many cuts this coming year. We haven't seen our county budget yet. It isn't released from the county executive until this year, November 16th. I fear that we will have cutbacks. I fear that we will not be able to do as much as we have done in the past. Only a third of our budget is really discretionary. The rest is all mandated. Therefore, the cuts will have to come in some of the more discretionary areas, programs that we have tried to fund to help people who can't help themselves, programs to enable children to have scholarship money to go into preschool, where a parent just misses the ability to get some scholarship money through Department of Social Services. There are a number of programs like this that we have been able to help. Even affordable housing, we have been able to spend upwards of $10 million a year on encouraging affordable housing in this county. That's how we've built the 1,700 units. Will we be able to continue to do that? I don't know. That's the discretionary money. And when times are tough and when the state starts cutting what it gives to the county, then the county has to start cutting as well. We've cut a lot already. We're down to the bone, but I fear that there will be more cuts.
Thank you. Next question has to do with flooding. What steps can the county government take to ensure that flood mediation becomes a reality for the Mamaroneck area?
We are taking steps, and we've been working. I am very fortunate to sit with my colleague, Supervisor O'Keefe, on the Flood Action Task Force at the behest of the county executive, whereby we have spent the past 2 years analyzing and reviewing applications from municipalities for flood mitigation projects. We were able to, just this past month, move forward 4 of these applications where we will be spending close to $5 million to help 4 different municipalities develop projects that will ease the flooding in their communities. Mamaroneck Village, unfortunately, is not eligible for the county funding because, and this is a good news, bad news, the good news is that they won the federal dollars from the Army Corps of Engineers through the good works of Nita Lowey, our Congresswoman, to have a study done of the confluence of the Sheldrake and Mamaroneck rivers. This is a huge issue. It's been looked at for over 100 years. They will do another study as soon as the state and the feds can sit down and talk to each other. They will do another study and hopefully with the new technology that's available come up with a solution that will be affordable and doable for Mamaroneck Village.
Thank you. The next question has to do with shared services. There is some interest at the county level in regionalizing some services to reduce costs and improve efficiencies. An example would be the regionalization of the management of stormwater. Local governments collectively have also begun to study the formation of their own consortiums to do the same. What is your opinion on county versus locally controlled consortiums for the regionalization of services?
I am very much for the regionalization of services. Most of the services that the county does provide are regionalized, and I think that stormwater management should be no different. Much along the same way that we have sewer districts, I believe we could have stormwater management districts. I think a very good example is one that has already started to develop in our area here called the Long Island Sound Watershed Intermunicipal Council, which combines the municipalities in one single watershed so that together they can look to both the cleanliness and the quality and quantity of the water. We have a number of watersheds throughout Westchester County, and this is the way I believe we could tackle this problem. I think we could do a lot more in the way of regionalization in this county. With 43 municipalities, we do tend to overlap each other, and I think the county is actually the solution to a great deal of the consolidation. Somebody mentioned in one of the debates something about SWAT teams in the village of Mamaroneck and town of Mamaroneck. Well, the county actually has quite a large SWAT team. There may be an opportunity not to have a separate county team as well as local municipal teams. We have a lot of overlap between our school districts in terms of purchasing, where perhaps they could move together and do more together. We have a lot of opportunities ahead of us.
Thank you. Rye Playland has again operated at a loss. Do you believe the county should continue to operate the facility? And if so, what steps should be taken to turn the operation profitable?
Actually, this is the first year that Rye Playland, despite the rain, did not use any tax dollars. Rye Playland paid for itself this year, largely through an increase in fees, which we did hear a lot about, and not very positively from a lot of people. It now costs money just to walk through Playland, whereas before you could walk in and not spend a dime. Rye Playland is dedicated park. It is a historic amusement park dating back to the early 20s. There are virtually no amusement parks in the United States today of this size that make money. Matter of fact, the model for making money as an amusement park is generally the model that is followed by Six Flags, and even Six Flags hasn't done too well. As the representative of the residents in Rye City, I would fight tooth and nail against any kind of effort to bring in a firm such as Six Flags just to turn the park into a profit maker. I don't believe that's what should be out there. If that was the only choice, then I would say take Rye Playland, turn it into passive parkland with lots of field opportunities for every single sport you can think of, and keep Kittyland. But as we stand now, because Rye Playland does serve as a huge economic engine for a large part of Westchester County, it's the largest single employer of youth in the county over the summertime, and because Rye Playland does provide the residents of Westchester County with a place to go, maybe not all from this specific area, but for other residents in the county. And as long as we're not using taxpayer dollars, I will continue to try to support Rye Playland as it is.
Thank you. What progress, if any, has the county made in addressing the staffing and other needs for child protective services? And could that progress be in jeopardy?
No, I don't think the process is in jeopardy. I think public safety, and especially the safety of our children, is paramount to any government, especially county government. The changes that have been made, many of which stem actually directly to our district attorney, Janet DeFiore, who started a child fatality review team, something that had not been done prior to this, prior to her role as district attorney, so that it is bringing many more eyes and ears to the forefront. Different departments are working with each other throughout the county who never worked before. There is also an effort to streamline, to computerize. I don't foresee any cutbacks in child protective services, especially since most of it is mandated by the state. The cutbacks will most likely be the state cutting money from the county and the county having to backfill money from its residents in the form of tax levy.
Okay. One of your responsibilities is to represent our interests to state representatives and leaders. As a representative of a combined area, you have more clout at the state level than do individuals. How have you represented our interests in Albany? And what are you willing to do to expand on that effort in the next 2 years?
I personally work very closely, I think all of you know, with Assemblyman George Latimer, especially because he sat in my seat prior to my coming into the County Board of Legislators. And his district and my district overlap very much, so we have very similar interests. He and I hold office hours. We held one last Saturday and saw some of you there. We hold office hours. We try to do it once a quarter and spend Saturday mornings in Rye and Saturday afternoons in Larchmont, Mamaroneck at the Nautilus. Where else? The other area that what we do as a county board is to provide, at the beginning of every year, we do put together a booklet of our own advocacy, basically, what New York State laws and legislation that we are advocating on behalf of for the county, including county initiatives that the state needs to take up. Then throughout the year, we work with the legislators, with our state legislation, to try to follow the legislation, make sure that they are getting people to sign on to it, and keep communication open.
Okay, we have one last question, and that is the League has long supported a county-wide reassessment as a way to more fairly distribute property taxes. Do you support a county-wide real property reassessment, and what is the basis for your support or non-support?
Yes, I support it, and the basis for that is it would be cheaper. The county did move a number of years ago to approve countywide reval. It unfortunately it's not a county decision, even though the county can support it. It does go up to the state legislature for approval. Both houses of the state legislature approved it, and it went to the governor, then Governor Pataki, who vetoed it. Since then, we have not tried to go back again. There was not unanimous support from the municipalities, but the municipalities are growing in support now. I would say just in the past 2 years, There are more municipalities now saying we have to do this because with all the certioraries, we're basically getting a very backdoor kind of reval that is not fair. We need to address our condos and co-ops issues. We need to address our business issues. But one thing that the county has started to do, because it helps in a lot of different ways, not just reval, is that we have authorized the spending to purchase oblique, sideways, and aerial photography throughout the county to gather the photographs that are necessary that can then be shared with the municipalities to overlay onto their own photographs of property to see changes, so that when the time comes to do reval, and any municipality that is undergoing reval, even if it's by themselves, they will have this as a resource and won't have to spend as much money sending people around to photograph homes.
Okay, thank you very much. And
Thank
Judy, if you'd like, we're going to give you an opportunity, if you'd like, to have a closing statement
Oh.
from a minute or so.
Well, I thought I'd take the next half hour.
Half
to-
hour.
Thank you all very much. Again, thank you for sticking it out. Thank you for being here. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for doing this. I think we are, I believe, I may be wrong, but I believe you are the only League of Women Voters this year to allow the uncontested candidates to have a little exposure. And I thank you for that. I thank you very much. And I look forward to serving all of you. I do urge you all, even though it's not a big banner election year, don't forget to vote. It is so important, and people in other countries die for the opportunity to vote, and we have this opportunity. We should use it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. If I could please have Valerie, Ernie, and Nancy. Wherever. We're now going to go to our last segment of today's forum. I'd like to introduce Ms. Valerie O'Keefe, who is running uncontested for the town supervisor position. She can be found on the Republican, Independents, and Conservative lines, and she is, of course, the incumbent. And to my left, my far left, is Nancy Seligson, incumbent on the town council, who is found on the Democratic line, and next to her, Mr. Ernest O'Dearna, who is also an incumbent on the Democratic line. We are forswearing all opening statements, and so I'm going to start right off with some questions. And I'm going to start, Valerie, with you, and then we'll move right down the line. The first question has to do with Larchmont. There are a number of vacant stores and commercial buildings in Larchmont. Although some or most may be outside the governmental jurisdiction of the town, what steps do you think town government can take to help ameliorate that situation?
Virtually none. I've been talking to the people in Larchmont who have stores. The business is so down. The number of the income these people are generating in their stores does not allow them to meet their rent. Now, even if the town of Mamaroneck were to drastically reduce the town-wide tax, that is the tax that the town charges inside the village, it's de minimis, because the town only charges about 1% of the tax that people in the village pay. So the town itself has very little impact on the stores being rented or not rented in the village of Larchmont. Very little, as far as tax goes. There's no direct governmental action that the local government can take. There's all kinds of things that the state can do. There are all kinds of income taxes, corporate taxes, and other taxes. Now, they're paying they're paying property tax. 60% of that is going to the school district, and 25% of it or so is going to the, let's see, the town gets 1%. The county is getting 18%, the village gets 23%, and the school district gets 58% in the village of Larchmont. So whatever direct influence there is in the town of Mamaroneck, it's very little.
I suppose, Mr. O'Dearna, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes. I've been attending the Chamber of Commerce and the Village of Mamaroneck meetings for the past 2 or 3 years, and they are also frustrated and wanting to get more business. And to me, a natural opportunity would be to attract some of the people from Larchmont to shop on Mamaroneck Avenue and in Mamaroneck. And we all have websites, and I have no problem whatsoever with posting on our website businesses that are members of the Chamber of Commerce in each of the 2 villages. I mean, we have to help our local businesses any way we can, without just pouring money on them, at least help them advertise inexpensively. And I've also been a long proponent of a inexpensive transportation system between the villages, so that you could go to shopping, you could go to a park, you can go to a library or a post office, and it shouldn't cost you anything, and it should be a non-polluting vehicle conveniently located. We need some real smarts to figure out where and when it should take place, but it's something that it's worth working towards.
Thank you. Ms. Seligson?
I happen to live in the village of Larchmont, although I am a town councilwoman. And it is sad to see open storefronts, empty storefronts, especially when you have such a vibrant village. I know that there is very little we can do from a legal or government standpoint, but I do think there is a lot we can do as a joint community in talking with one another, in working together, in having joint Chamber of Commerce meetings, in reaching out and just discussing what the community is suffering from, or what we could use, or how we could attract new companies, businesses, help small businesses, and make them feel that there is a groundswell of support for them. Parking is definitely an issue in the downtown areas, and trying to work together to alleviate some of those stresses would be very helpful, I think, if we could get together with the business owners and with some of the residents and talk about how we could encourage people to park differently, think about parking differently, use bicycles, walk to the communities, so that it's a lot more pleasant when you don't have to circle around for 5 or 10 minutes looking for a parking place to do some of your shopping. So I think there is work we can do together to try and make it better.
Okay, thank you. The next question, I'm going to start with you, Mr. O'Dearna. The town of Mamaroneck has a committee that has been studying the consolidation of services. Can you tell us what the status is of that study? What steps have been undertaken to date to share or consolidate services? And what further consolidation do you support? And do you support opening these meetings to the public for their input?
Combination of questions. What
Yeah.
time is it? It's something that we've been talking about for several years. We do a lot of consolidated services right now. A perfect example is the senior center, something that we have improved dramatically over what was in existence before. An important part of consolidation is you want to improve services. Many of the savings are illusionary. You think you're going to save all kinds of dollars by eliminating personnel, but that's kind of rare. You will end up with more responsibility with the personnel that have to run the combined agencies, and so you're going to pay them more. So you may not save as much as you thought when you went into it by eliminating personnel. The committee has been functioning. We got a report this afternoon. We've been in session since 3 o'clock this afternoon in the town with our, we moved it up from our normal time so that we could accommodate the league debates this evening. But Dave Fishman is our liaison to the Intermunicipal Cooperation Commission, And Bill Denzer, I believe, is the chairperson. And I don't think it would be productive for them to be meeting in public. I'm a big public proponent. I'd like to get as much as possible in front of the public. But a lot of the discussions they're having are somewhat sensitive. They're personnel related. They're contractually related. So I think they're doing as good as they're going to be doing. And I think they're going to be giving us a report by the end of the year.
Thank you. Ms. Seligson?
I'm not going to be able to add too much to that because, as Ernie mentioned, David Fishman, our fellow council person, is the liaison to that committee. So we don't actually attend those meetings. He does report to us at all our meetings about what's going on, but it is definitely a highly sensitive subject because I think there's so much opportunity there, but there's a lot of potential turf wars going on there too. So we're very lucky to have Bill Denzer, who is a fabulously talented person and even-keeled moderator for those kinds of discussions. And they are planning to provide a report at the end of this year. So we will take that report, and then that's when our work is really going to start, to be able to take action and follow up on that. But I am a great proponent of looking at where we can consolidate. It's, as you all must know, it's very complicated municipal boundaries and services in our community. People find it hard to believe when I try and explain that the village of Larchmont and half the village of Mamaroneck are actually within the town of Mamaroneck, that the village of Mamaroneck is split between two towns, that there's several school districts, and it goes on, as we all know. So the idea of consolidation is very, very appealing right now. And I think even if we can't save so much money, we could save some sanity by trying to work together.
Thank you. Ms. O'Keefe?
Well, I think Ernie and Nancy have touched on everything. We have a very able group of people. We have 2 people from each one of the communities, plus Mr. Denzer, who's an extremely gifted and able moderator. And they're studying different aspects of the 3 municipalities and how we deliver services. They will come up, as Nancy says, I think by January 1 with a report. Then each one of the 3 municipalities is going to have to take a look at this report and say, does this make any sense? Does municipality A want to do what municipality B wants to do? So we don't know what's happening. Do I think it should be open to the public right now? No. They've got all kinds of data on a table, and they're looking to see how much it costs and how many people are in what department. They're professional analysts in a way, and I don't see the point of having it open at this point. It's a working group. It's not a policy-making group. If they had any authority to change anything, yes, it should be open, but they don't. They're making a recommendation. They're not public officials.
Thank you. The next question has to do with some pay raises. During the last year, due to the economic downturn, many town residents find themselves either unemployed or underemployed. And as we've said repeatedly, Westchester County has been identified as a very high-tax county. Given these circumstances, how do you justify to the residents and taxpayers granting retroactive pay raises to town employees? Ms. Seligson.
Our town employees worked 10 months of the year so far, and we did not enact a pay raise for them for this year until last week, 2 weeks ago. And I felt that we should not penalize them because we had not enacted a proactive pay raise. Also, when we look at the public sector workers, there are people who have modest salaries to begin with compared to the private sector. And they don't enjoy the large increases or bonuses that the private sector enjoys. And they really look at their jobs, and they do enjoy a certain amount of security that might be different from the private sector. So I felt that although I was not happy to have to increase salaries because it is such a difficult economic time, that the public sector employees have such low salaries to begin with in a lot of ways. And because they had already done the work, and because it was really our fault in a way for not coming to their, the attention of their salaries till the 10th month of the year that I felt we had to go forward with their increases. And I'm happy we did.
Ms. O'Keefe?
I agree with that. What we have done in the town is that we have not voted on the pay raise for the non-union employees at the same time as right in the beginning of the year. One of the reasons was that negotiations were going on with the unions. When negotiations are going on with the unions, you don't want to say I'm giving X or Y increase to the non-union employees. It kind of puts a monkey wrench in the whole negotiating process. I do think we could have done it earlier, but I certainly didn't want to penalize these people for a modest 2.5% increase since they'd already done the work. And I think that what Nancy said is true. They don't make too much money, and what they've done is they've chosen a profession where there's little risk. You have more chance of keeping your job in the public sector than you do if you're taking a gamble in the private sector where you can make a whole bunch of money. These people are never going to make a whole bunch of money. And since the 3 unions we have, the police, the fire, and the civil CSEA, already had more than 2.5%, it seemed to me to be equitable, fair, and the right thing to do to give them the 2.5%. That doesn't mean going into the new budget of 2010 that anybody's going to get anything. But I didn't want to penalize them for the work they'd already done because maybe we were a little bit late in our vote. They're working people. They deserve a workman's worthy of his hire. I don't want to nickel and dime these people. They work very hard.
Thank you. Mr. O'Dearna?
Well, I was in the minority at our last vote 2 weeks ago. I voted against the increase. Being a business person and having run my own business for many years and seeing many of my colleagues losing their jobs or taking drastic reductions in salary, I felt that our taxpayers needed some relief also. 25 or 30 years ago, I remember when I was in elementary school, the teachers bemoaned the fact that they were getting paid less than truck drivers. Well, things have the pendulum has kind of swung. Our municipal employees, and these were the supervisors we were talking about, make a pretty decent salary, certainly comparable to what private industry is doing, and plus the vacations, plus the very generous benefits they get. I was concerned that we're sending the wrong message to our residents, that we are oblivious to their plight. I felt that it's time to draw the line in the sand, and I didn't mean to penalize anybody, but we shouldn't assume you're going to get an automatic increase. And I was also frustrated by the fact that it was automatic, that everyone, no matter how hard they worked or how much they contributed, would automatically get more money for next year. Times are different,
No, not
times are
next year.
tough.
This year.
This year, okay. So we have to reflect on what's really happening in our community, I felt.
Thank you. The next question has to do with the next year's budget. Municipal revenues, as you are well aware, have been under significant pressure for the last year or two, and they continue to be so. In addition, there is an anticipated large shortfall in pension funding that will have to be made up at the local level. Given these economic conditions, what other sources of revenue do you think the town may be able to pursue, or what cuts in services, if any, would you support to alleviate the tax burden on our residents?
I don't think there's going to be any other way to get revenue. What's been happening is that we're at the bottom of the feeding chain, but totally a responsibility of the state government by pretending and keep spending money by injecting this stimulus funds in a completely phony way. The whole thing is going to start crashing. What we have now is we have the MTA tax. We're going to have a much, much higher tax that we have to pay or contribution to the pension system, which there's no requirement that the employees make any contribution to, which the state took away, which was totally irresponsible, so some guy could try to be governor. So I don't think we're going to get any more revenues. What we have to do is try to deliver basic services with what we've got, but we don't want to overspend our surplus. We want to keep a surplus. One of the reasons that we've been able to have a AAA bond rating is because we've kept a decent surplus. So I don't want to take all the surplus we have and apply it to keep the tax rate down. I think what we'll do is we'll be very tight on our expenditures, and we'll try to come in with as low a tax rate as possible, but I don't think we're going to get any more revenues. We're going to have to cut from the other way. I don't see where the money's going to come from. Our sales tax down, the mortgage tax is down. We're now taxed for subway people, so there's no more revenue coming in. I think that we're going to get hit even worse from the state, and so will the schools.
Thank you. Mr. O'Dearna?
Well, it's a subject that's fraught for different interpretation. I'm a believer that you should pay for the services that you get. So if you want to swim or you want to use the recreation facilities, maybe it's going to cost you a little bit more than it did the year before. And so that's a reasonable expense. If you want to park your car on a parking lot that is owned by the town, maybe that's going to cost you a little more. There are various areas that we can tweak. They're disguised taxes, though. I mean, let's face the fact that if the town is imposing a fee on what you need to live, that's another word for a tax. So maybe we can't increase taxes, and I'm sure that's going to be our feeling. We're going to do all we can to keep whatever increases are necessary to an absolute minimum. I would like to see it zero or a reduction. Everyone groans when I say a reduction, but again, I'm looking at the contributions that the employees don't make to the pension funds and to the health benefit plan. I could see us raising that to some minimum. I don't want to make our unions more crazy than they're going to have to be, but I think we should send the message forth that it's not going to be business as usual.
Thank you. Ms. Seligson?
I think it's going to be very difficult to come up with new revenue sources as well. Although we could sell tickets to our town board meetings. We'd make about 50 cents. We don't have too many takers.
We'll have to have some fake fights.
But the only area would be to raise fees for some of the services we have in the town. And that might be something we have to look at. It is going to be a very, very difficult year in trying to keep the taxes down and maintain the level of services that we provide to the citizens. So I think we're all going to be open to looking at those ideas, and we're certainly going to put our heads together and try and come up with some way to keep our level of services, try and increase the revenues, and we're certainly going to be looking at every penny that we spend. But coming up with new revenues for town government is kind of hard in this climate right now.
The next question has to do with the fair housing settlement. The county obviously recently entered into a fair housing settlement that will require the construction of housing for underrepresented minorities in various communities. How do you anticipate complying with the terms of this settlement? Mr. O'Dearna?
Well, we spent several years negotiating with a developer in the town, Forest City, and they're building a luxury condo of about 135 apartments, I believe, and we were able to negotiate 9 affordable houses, apartments that are going to be rental. I was discussing this morning at the summit meeting the possibility of us going back to the drawing board with the developer and trying to offer them some of the federal incentive money that we're getting to try to increase that number from perhaps 9 to 18 or 20 or 30 or whatever it might take. But I think we have to intelligently go after opportunities. We have certain sacred things in the town. One of them is open space. We try to keep it as open as possible, make it for recreation. Maybe we have to look at combining activities and building some residential housing as well as recreational. We've looked at some of the zoning possibilities on Boston Post Road, as Valerie mentioned this morning, allowing apartments to be built on top of stores. We need to incentivize developers because it's really going to come out of the developers and the extra help that we're going to get from the federal government to build more housing. We're totally in favor of it. I think I can speak for the board of doing whatever we can to build more affordable housing. Of course, it's got to be open to all ethnic groups and it has to be promoted to all ethnic groups. It's not just an economic level like it had been before.
Thank you. Ms. Seligson?
I would love to see us increase the diversity of our community and affordable housing opportunities. In a developed community, it's not so easy in terms of just building something new, but there are opportunities for reuse and redevelopment in our community. And I think we're going to have to look at every single one of those and really try and persuade the developer or the owner that this is something that has to happen for the community at large, and that there will be some kind of incentive to get them to cooperate in that manner. But it is difficult. We're very fortunate that we have a wonderful run affordable housing complex in the Homix Park Apartments that we feel very proud of. If we could rebuild or build something like that again, I think we all would be very favorable toward it. We don't have any more completely run-down hotels that we can convert, thank goodness, in a lot of ways. But I think that whatever redevelopment or reuse opportunities come up in the town, that we as ambassadors for the housing change are going to really have to reach out and talk to them and see if we can get them to comply and cooperate.
Thank you. Ms. O'Keefe?
Talk about rundown hotels. Back in the early 1900s, there was a rundown German hotel right at where Memorial Park is now. They knocked that place down, and then they built Chatsworth Gardens. So you never know. We've always been proactive in the town of Mamaroneck to try to reach out to provide housing for people who, what we call workforce housing. And what we did under Supervisor Ryan, under Supervisor Elaine Price, going back to Caroline Silverstone and Supervisor Battaglia, they took the Larchmont Motel and they turned it into a miraculous, decent place for workforce housing. I can take no credit for that whatsoever, but it's a model. And people say, those condominiums down there on the post road, you say, what condominiums? That's our workforce housing, because it was done so well. Even though at the time I was afraid that it was all gonna fall apart, having lived in Yonkers where the stuff did fall apart. We reached out and we fought like dogs to get the 9 affordable units in the Forest City Daily. We're proactive. We want people to be there. I wanted Forest City Daily to be a rental place so that we could keep the neighborhood diverse. What happened is when all the rental apartments become co-ops and condos, when the middle income to lower income people are under rent control, they die, that class of people is gone. So we're saying, come on, we'll try to help you, we'll work with them as best we can. There is a confusion about fair housing and affordable housing, however, which is, I can't go to now because I have to stop. But we want to help the county.
Thank you. The next question has to do with reassessment. Do you support a countywide reassessment of property taxes? Why or why not? Ms.
I get to go
Seligson.
first.
Yes.
You get to go
Yeah.
first.
Okay.
How did you know?
Yes. I support revaluation. I support reval. I would like to see us do reval. We are working on it in the town of Mamaroneck. We have hired a consultant to talk to us about different ways to do reval. We have studied it. We have asked members of our community, very, very smart volunteers to study it, and we have really looked at it up and down. It's a political hot potato, though, and it's difficult to do as one individual municipality. It's definitely preferable to do it countywide. If not countywide, it's preferable to do it with a group of municipalities, preferably ones surrounding us. Also, the town of Mamaroneck, as you know, has 2 villages within it. So they currently have different assessment roles. That confuses the issue. But we would like to see all of us do reval, because it is, currently the practice is unfair. The evaluation of homes is unfair as it stands right now. That's why we want to do it. But we also know we have to do it in a way that makes it fair and makes it a valuable procedure. So that means we have to really evaluate each individual home. You can't just drive by and say, I think this is that, I think that is something else. It's got to be done in a very thorough, structured way. So we are moving forward. We're hoping that in November, we will work with our consultant again to create a request for proposals in going forward.
Everybody says they want county reval, and the reason they say that I'm not demeaning what
ahead.
my friends are saying here. It means you don't have to vote for it yourself in your own town. You don't get into political hot water, or the county is gonna do it. The reason Governor Pataki vetoed it last time was because IBM and some of those huge, big corporate places said, if you reval Westchester, we're out of here. So he was afraid of the economic, well, condition of Westchester if they left, but I suppose other influences that IBM and the corporations might have on him. I'm skeptical of county reval for one reason. I want them to do it. A, it's gonna take a long time, and B, it's not gonna be that good. They're talking, and I've talked to the people who talked to them, is they wanna take what Judy said, you can take oblique pictures, and you can take top pictures, and you take a look and you say, oh, Valerie, she says she lives in a Cape Cod house. Now, it looks like she's added like a swimming pool and, 5 wings to it. You can tell that. But they don't plan on really going inside the house. So that's a cheap way of doing it. I want to do it the right way, where you really do it right, and you go inside the people's houses like Pelham did, and 2 houses can look the same on the outside. They both look like Archie Bunker houses, you know what I mean? One of them can have swimming pools and marble fountains and everything else. So you have to go inside to see what the real fair market value is. We're having a horrible reval happening now because so many people are, so many certiorari's we have, and so many tax grievances. We had 600 of these things this year in the town. Last year we had 300. So it's happening in a nasty, inequitable way. We should do it. And I agree with Nancy that if it doesn't work right with the county, we should do it in the town, period.
Mr. O'Derna?
Well, I'm in total agreement that our first choice would be to have the county do it, provided it's done right. It takes a certain amount of political guts on the part of an elected body to move forward on an issue like this. There are people who are concerned about what might happen to their taxes, much more vociferous and potentially feel the pain much more than people who are neutral or maybe going to save a little money on their taxes. So you have to deal with that, and this is coming up on a good time, and that there's not an election period for 2 years after this one. So that we're not going to be looking over our shoulders every minute about you're going to get thrown out of office because you voted for a reval. So I think it's a good time, and I think it has a good chance of moving forward. We've been working on it. Irving Schaaf is here. He was on our commission, on our committee years ago with George Roniger and a number of others that looked at it and came up with problems and suggestions. And I think we've learned from that, and we hope to learn more.
Thank you. I have 2 more questions.
Did
Yes, she
yeah,
started.
she loves it, she loves it.
So now it's your turn.
Okay, right.
What is your position with respect to consolidating with the Village of Larchmont and/or the Village of Mamaroneck to form a single larger municipality?
Well, you mean making it all one big happy family? If the 2 villages wanted to disappear themselves into the town, that'd be all right with me. I don't think they do. I think it's remotely possible. People like their own little spaces, their own little government, their own culture in their own small places. It started off as 2 towns, 3 towns. You went from the town of Pelham, which was at the Bronx line, then you had the town of New Rochelle, the town of Mamaroneck, the town of Rye. That was it. Then you got to Connecticut. Now look what happened in the latter part of the 19th century. You've got villages forming, the village of Pelham, the village of Pelham Manor. New Rochelle becomes a city, the village of Larchmont, then the village of Mamaroneck, which is in 2 towns. Then you had something in the city of Rye, which was a village of Rye. Then you had the village of Portchester. That was something that New York State did that other places didn't do. As a resident of an unincorporated area of a town, and looking at what happened in Connecticut when you don't have these incorporated villages and seeing how much cheaper things are, what can I tell you? But the only time villages disappear, like in upstate New York, is when they go bankrupt. And they are doing that. They're dissolving villages. The village of Mamaroneck is not going to go bankrupt. The village of Larchmont's not going to go bankrupt. So I don't think it's going to happen.
Mr. O'Derna?
Well, I'd like to worry about the things that can likely happen, and I agree with Valerie. I don't see the villages disappearing or wanting to be taken over by the town. I think we're on the right track with consolidation of services. I think what people are interested in is doing a better job and not spending money unnecessarily. If we can avoid duplication of efforts, let's do it. If we could use a department of street cleaning or a department of street line painting or of housing inspections or of engineering resources to clean the sewers, that makes infinite sense. We don't have to fight windmills that aren't spinning. So I think we have enough to do with things that are the low-hanging fruit.
Ms. Seligson?
I think consolidating the three communities would be wonderful if it was possible, but I have to say the political impediments and even some of the logistic impediments seem insurmountable because you have so many different municipalities involved. It's not just the three communities because the village of Mamaroneck is in 2 different towns. So, and you've got different school districts, and it just seems like it's almost impossible to do. But if there was the will of the villages or the people to do it, I think it would be great in an ideal situation because we do share so many things. In the town of Mamaroneck, most people think they live in the village of Larchmont, but they actually live in the unincorporated town of Mamaroneck. You know, there's so much crossover and so many of the services in our schools, in our houses of worship, in our recreational facilities, and everything. That when someone tells me they're from Mamaroneck, I just assume that we're all in it together. I don't really have to know exactly what street they're on, although when they tell me, I do know where they actually live, unlike themselves, because they're probably confused. So, you know, in an ideal world, I think it would be great if we could go back 120 years, I guess we could do it, but we're not going to. So I think we're on the right road of just trying to consolidate what we can, trying to make sense of the services we provide and provide them in the most efficient and best manner.
Thank you. The last question. Each candidate for town government this year is running unopposed. Do you believe that uncontested elections are good for the residents of this community? Also, what steps do you think should be taken to encourage more people to run for public office? Mr. O'Dearna.
Well, I've been a long-time advocate of involving more citizens in our deliberations. I think the more people know about what we're doing and what challenges we're faced, the more they'll be intrigued and potentially get involved. So again, it goes back to information exchange, letting them know what our agendas are going to be, a little background information on the agenda items, drawing them out into committees and commissions and letting them give us advice. That'll be the first step to them being interested in running. We get along pretty good on the town. We don't always agree. A lot of times we disagree, but we're still friends, and it's not, you know, people have an image of politics as misery or it's fights and it's all unpleasantness. It's not. It's fun and it's rewarding. If you do a good job and you get something accomplished, there's nothing more rewarding.
Thank you. Ms. Seligson?
I think politics can be nasty. So I think that it would be good to have contested elections in the sense that it energizes the community, gets them involved, you get to start to talk about the issues, what are the differences, you know, how can we do this differently? That's all healthy to have, as long as you also have people who are participating in a respectful in a manner where they want to do what's good for the community, where they're not attacking, where there's not negative campaigning. I really think that there's no room for that in our small communities. So I think it would be better for the communities to have the contested elections if we could do it in a respectful manner and really talk about some issues and talk about how we could do things differently or better, get some, you know, new brain power in there. From a personal standpoint, it's way better for my family not to have a contested election. However, my husband and son have been dying to create bumper stickers, and they are dying for a fight, but you know what, it's much better this way for me personally. But I do think that we need to get more people involved, people who want to participate in a dedicated fashion. Because as Ernie said, it's really true. You know, you get to know your community at a level of intimacy that really no other job can afford you. You get to know the fire department, the police department, you know, the staff of the community. You get to know about people's neighborhoods and what matters to them, whether it's their sidewalk or their library. And it is very rewarding, and you feel that you're really part of the community. So I also would love to see and encourage people to get more involved. If that took a contested election, I think that would be fine.
Thank you.
I think contested elections are good. sometimes. But
We had a good time,
no,
Valerie,
we
right?
did. One of the troubles is it costs a lot to run for office.
Yeah.
Like to run for an office that pays $37,000, you might pay $60,000 for that. And you only have that job for 2 years, and then you pay the $60,000 again. Well, that's hard to raise that amount of money, especially if you're in a minority type party, you know, when it's kind of going down in numbers. So what will happen unless the Republican Party rebounds, will you get like primaries in the Democratic Party? Will you have reformed bunch of people? I think one of the reasons that we don't have so many contested elections, to be kind of self-serving about all of us and my two colleagues, Phyllis and David, who aren't here, our colleagues, is that we're doing a pretty good job. It's not like people are jumping up and down saying, you people aren't doing this thing right, you're sloppy, or you're stupid, or you're selfish, or you're spending too much money. If we were really losers, then people would be coming to try to get rid of us. But I think that's one of the things, and I must say it's a great joy for me to be able to work with my colleagues. I have tremendous respect and affection for all of them. And as you can see, we don't agree on everything. And we all come from different points of view, which is what you want on a board. Otherwise, you're going to have a dictator. Ernie's the entrepreneur. He brings us back to reality with money and how people live. You know what I mean? Nancy, I don't want to characterize everybody, but Nancy is a great environmentalist that's known like all over the East Coast. David is a business guy who's all kinds of things with electronics and magazines, and Phyllis is a jack of all trades. So we're doing pretty well here.
I'd now like to move to closing statements. You all have up to 1 minute to summarize.
Goody.
Valerie, you
Okay,
can go first.
these are the things we did in the last year. We put a new parking deck up in the Larchmont, what do you call it, area, what do we call that place there? Train station. I'm calling it the Chatsworth Myrtle Boulevard. We call it Washington Square area, even though it's not really at Washington Square. We merged the Senior Citizen Center to great, I think, benefit to the village of Mamaroneck. We saved them a lot of money. The year before, we took it over from the village of Larchmont, the funding of it. We saved them a lot of money. We started the Tri-Municipal Shared Services Study Group. We got grant money, substantial amount for flooding at the Larchmont Gardens, and Ernie's been the mouthpiece for that Larchmont Gardens for years. We're trying to keep property taxes down, and we're going to look to grow our recreation programs, and I want to thank you for your attention. It's very late. I know you've kind of had it, and I appreciate your kindness and being so attentive.
Mr. O'Dearna?
Well, enthusiasm is contagious, and I think, I hope anyway, that the people who are going to be viewing this will recognize the fact that we are enthusiastic about what we do, and we're trying to do better. And if they have any great ideas or suggestions, they don't even have to be that great, but the synergy of another idea mixed in with some other thinking can create something that's great and worthwhile and working. So we're open to suggestions and participation, and we look forward to serving you again in the future. Thank you.
And Ms. Seligson?
I'm looking forward to trying to green the town of Mamaroneck even more than we have. We have made some great strides in the town of Mamaroneck. We heat our town center with biofuel. We converted 2 garbage trucks to run on used vegetable oil. We are looking at retrofitting and updating the ice rink, which is the largest energy user in the town, and hopefully going to make that much more energy efficient. There are a lot of things we can do. I also would like to try and get people to appreciate some of our conservation areas more. The Hommocks Conservation Area is just a spectacular place, especially in the fall. It's very, very beautiful, right on the water and on wetlands. And I'm really looking forward to sort of educating and involving more of the community in trying to think how we can reduce our greenhouse gas consumption and carbon footprint. And I appreciate working with all my colleagues and working on all the other issues. I know we have a tough budget season ahead of us, and so that's going to take a lot of work also. But thank you for the opportunity to serve. Thank you all for putting on this forum this evening, and
Ditto.
that's it.
I'd like to say that now ends this forum, but I would like to make one brief announcement. The League of Women Voters has put out its Voters Guide for 2009, and they are distributed to every library within Westchester County, as well as to the clerk's offices in the various municipalities, so please be sure to pick up one. Remind you to vote on Tuesday, November 3rd. The polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And if you're not able to get a voter's guide, you can look up your candidates and your polling place by going to the League's website, www.smartvoter.org. It'll ask you to type in your address, and you will come up with a ballot that is unique to your residence. And the candidates are able to update the information on that site on an ongoing basis. Thank you all very much for attending, and good night.
Thank you, Noreen. You were a great moderator. There's some better than others. You were very good.